Story 1. My wife's been cheating with her friend, so I went ahead and scorched earth. My wife, 29 of 7 years, had cheated on me with one of her longtime friends. In mid-July, I discovered text messages back and forth between them after getting suspicious and finally checking her phone. The texts I read were from a day after D-Day about how good their intimacy was. I love you, and even discussing a mild fight we had, where she recounted things I said, and they both laughed about it. I tried to explain that we may be entering a new stage of marriage where we are comfortable and complacent. It might feel a little boring, but maybe that's just how things get once you're married for more than a few years. But she is convinced that is wrong, and we've drifted apart despite spending our days together full of good conversation, good sex, etc. She doesn't know that I know. I've talked to a lawyer and have divorce papers in the works. Note: this is the second time she did this. The first time she cheated when we were dating. We had a 6-month split, worked things out, got back together, and later married. On the rare occasions we talk about her past infidelity, I've told her if she ever does it again, we're done. We've been fine for 6 years with no problems. About a year ago, she began getting a little colder and wouldn't accept my affection. Things like she didn't hug me back at all. I guess this distance culminated in her affair. Fast forward to today. I've known for 3 weeks and have been waiting for paperwork before confronting her. At first, she was clearly not interested in me, but this week she seems to be feeling more guilty about her actions and a little more interested in me. She has been trying to do what she can to make up for her actions in her own way, all without us ever talking about it, like washing dishes, cleaning, cooking, all while refusing any help. It's like she is punishing herself. In my mind, she has completely betrayed me, and I can no longer trust her. She has caused me such pain and cannot possibly love me if she is able to do all that. Financially, we have been okay but struggled a bit because she doesn't want to work. She is finally working for a year, but it's a minimum wage part-time job and barely covers her bills. I feel like I have to pull all the weight and she is not really my equal. At the same time, I still care about her, value the life we built, and will worry about what will happen to her. I think she could easily fall into a deep depression. There is really only one way forward, and that is divorce, but I am worried about how she will take it, and it will be hard to resist taking her back. I almost wish she would happily leave with her new person. I know I have to divorce her, but not looking forward to the heartbreak, loneliness, and whatever else I can't even predict. How do I do this? Update 1. 3 days until I go scorched earth. All the people doing remind me in 3 days. I realized it may not be 3 days. My lawyer will be giving me the paperwork in 3 days, but I have to read over it carefully and make sure it's right, so it may be longer. Sorry, but she will get burned eventually. I posted last week that I found out about my wife cheating and haven't confronted her yet. I want to get everything set up and ready before I do. In an effort to do so, I was able to download a complete text message log of her conversation with AP. Holy Jesus, she is way more messed up than I thought. So, I originally thought she began cheating in July, but nope. Not only did her affair begin in May, but from March to May, she had another affair, this one involving unprotected intimacy with a heroin addict. So the grand total of cheating is 4 dudes. Now on to the current AP. First, she established his support by lying to him about our relationship. She told him I insult her in a mean way, which is not true at all. This gave him justification, so he began manipulating her, telling her she deserves better, that I'm a piece of shit, I'm a child, all kinds of stuff. He actually fancied himself a relationship coach. He would listen to her complaints about me and tell her how I would respond or the reason I did that. The person she is cheating with telling her how to handle her relationship? WTF. The things she was mad about, I had no idea they bothered her. She never told me. Remember, he has never met me, yet he thinks he can predict all my behavior. This guy prides himself on his control over others. He bragged about it. He thinks he's some relationship guru. It's ridiculous. He is a church minister. He bragged about how he helps a teen group get closer to God. In one instance, he bragged how he helped a teenager break up with his girlfriend and then did a good job consoling the girlfriend because she was then suicidal. So she has fallen for this good guy act, total manipulation, hook, line, and sinker. He refers to her living with me as prison and calls me the ass. While I am the one who hugs her, who pays her bills, who happily greets her when she gets home from work, who values her above all others. I do have to come clean. I value self-improvement very much and believe people should always be striving to improve, but she has not improved at all over the last 10 years. She is overweight, dropped out of college, working a minimum wage part-time job. Years ago, I tried to get her to improve, asked her to go to the gym with me, do a sport, anything, but she refused. She was unemployed for 4 years while I paid her student loan and an alarmingly high credit debt. I asked her to find a job every week. She never did. I asked her to go to school, I'd pay. She can study anything she wants. She never went. After a few years of requesting her to work on herself, I slowly got frustrated to where I began criticizing her for her lack of effort. Sometimes I was so frustrated with it. I was mean about it. This was very wrong of me. I stopped all my criticizing a few years ago, before her affairs began. She truly loved me even when I was still mainly criticizing, yet now that I'm not, she didn't love me. My criticizing didn't come from a place of hate. I believe that a marriage is a partnership that should be equal, that she should be my equal. I wanted to help her gain equality in our relationship, but she didn't want it. I think we are supposed to be able to lean on each other for support, yet she leaned on me only. Now that I'm in school and need some support, she has completely fallen apart, which manifests in affairs and resentment, all without addressing her issues with me. If she has a problem with me, she brings it to AP, and he tells her what I will probably say. She told her mom about her affair and tried to say how bad I was to her, but she didn't believe my wife. My wife got angry that her mom wasn't on her side, complained about it to AP, who quickly took her side and rationalized her mom's stance. My wife is looking for someone to agree with her, to justify the awful things she's done to me. She feels shame and hides it by convincing herself how terrible a person I am. She has very little emotional intelligence and barely pays attention to me, can't read me at all, yet she is an open book to me. Her mental image of me is not at all who I really am. She is stuck on the person I used to be, but I've changed a lot over the last few years, but she never noticed. She won't leave me because she knows she has it super cushy with me. She told AP if she leaves me, she is nothing. I am a busy student, so I don't have tons of time to give her attention like I used to. I think this is what triggered the cheating. If anything else challenges her as a priority for me, she goes wildly unstable. So here we are today. I've read all her texts. She still has no idea I am aware of her despicable ways. I have divorce papers coming Wednesday and counting the minutes until I can blow up her world. I was going to try to do things nicely, but now after reading it all, I want to go scorched earth. I want her to really understand the depth of her horrible behavior. I posted last week I was not looking forward to it, but now I am. I can't wait to read her texts with AP back to her and show her just how messed up it is. I can't wait to point out all the obvious manipulation AP has done with her. I am looking for support for my situation and possible solutions to a dilemma. We have a dog that she is obsessed with, like a child, and will fight tooth and nail for. But neither of us has money to fight it over in court. So how can I keep my dog without incurring $30,000 in court/lawyer fees? Yes, she is crazy enough to do that over the dog. I am thinking I can somehow serve her papers and leave with my stuff and the dog same day before she gets the papers. The problem there is that I live at school, which I need to be back for in September. There is a lot more to this, but the texting with AP is like literally 100 pages, so this is very condensed. Update 2 in the home stretch. I guess I got ahead of myself with that 3-day countdown. The papers took a lot longer than I was told. Well, now I have them and all the pieces are starting to fall into place. I am planning to have her served a week from today, but as we all know, things may not play out exactly as planned. My soon-to-be ex-wife still has no idea that I discovered her cheating over a month ago and have been planning for our separation. I've been living with her and acting like nothing is wrong for this whole time, and she is completely oblivious. It has actually been difficult to not catch her. I've seen her texting him and would have caught her 15 times over at this point. She never even changed her password, and she still talks about him like he is just a friend of hers. It can be hard to keep my cool when she is talking about him, but I do what I have to do. Sometimes I feel like secretly plotting against her to pull the rug out from under her is wrong. Not wrong to do to her, but immoral for me to do something like this regardless of who is on the receiving end. Some days it is difficult to hide that I am angry with her about what she did. Some days it feels like some weird dream I'm living in. We had a big fight about our relationship in which I was able to call her out on lots of her poor choices without giving up the fact that I know about everything. I told her she didn't love me and that I haven't been into her for a long time. That was a week ago, and I've been using that big fight as a cover, so now if I'm angry or cold, she thinks it is because of that big fight we had. I was the only thing holding our relationship together, and now that I know about her infidelity, I have no reason to put in any effort. As a result, our relationship has drastically fallen apart. I explained all this to her, and it seems she realized it was true. Since that fight, she seems to have chosen me over her affair partner. This is obviously not how it should be. She chose me when we got married, so there should not even be a choice to be made here. She has been putting more effort into showing me attention and communicating. She wants to make things work, but from my perspective, way too little, way too late. There is nothing she can do to change the situation she put us in. She made her bed. Now she has to lie in it. This infidelity began because her position as the absolute center of my life was challenged. Her large amount of attention from me, from which she derives happiness, was challenged. So she sought the attention elsewhere rather than communicating with me. What I find truly hilarious is that the men she has chosen to have affairs with don't treat her as number one either. One guy regularly ignored her for weeks. The other guy has an ex-wife and child that he even told her would always be his priority. He's even been seen around town with other girls. Remember that this guy is a youth pastor also. So she is not even number two to this guy, even though they tell each other how special their relationship is. He even told her he plans on moving to co-parent his kid with his ex. But none of that matters to her. How is she okay with that but can't handle me focusing on school? So here is the update as of today. As a response to our big fight, she decided she will be staying with her parents for a few weeks to clear her head. This makes things way easier for me. I don't have to worry about her refusing to leave or attacking me or any other crazy things she may do. She already has plans to come back. Little does she know, I have arranged for her to get divorce papers served the day after she gets to her parents. So I have a week to go and it can't be over soon enough. As much as I want it to be over, it means this is also the last week I will ever see my dog. It really sucks, we are super attached, but I have no hope of keeping him. There are some special circumstances that I don't want to explain, but it's basically impossible for me to keep him. I'm gonna miss him a lot. Update 3. Blindsided her with papers. I did it. She got blindsided and completely devastated by the news. I discovered my wife's multiple affairs over a month ago, but I didn't confront her. Instead, I carefully and secretly planned out how to remove her from my life with as few problems for me as possible. I've been acting totally normal for the last month, being cheerful, buying her things, having conversations, etc. It has been a long month. I wanted to call her out so badly, it was on the tip of my tongue, but I never did because it would make things difficult for me. So I hit the gym, lawyered up, got papers drafted, collected over 450 pages of explicit messaging, set up a new debit account ready to transfer funds, and convinced her to take some time at her parents' house. Everything, and I mean everything, went to plan. I even predicted the exact reaction her and her family would have. I froze her credit card with my name and transferred half our money to the new debit account as soon as I heard the papers were delivered. She left yesterday with her mom. I just gave her a hug and said, "Take care of yourself." She said, "Okay." This morning, a process server arrived at her parents' home and delivered the papers. She had no idea I knew what she was doing. Her parents? They had no idea about anything. She got completely blindsided and was apparently hysterical. I say hysterical because, get this, I still haven't talked to her. Yup, her mom called me and I had to explain the situation to her, just higher level details though. Even in a situation like this, her mom is trying to solve the problems for her. It's absolutely ridiculous. I can't even discuss my personal relationship with my wife privately. This is a 29-year-old woman who is letting her mom mediate and talk on her behalf. Although I did have a good relationship with my mother-in-law and she did push my wife to work on her marriage, I find this so beyond idiotic of them both. I handled everything with tact, kept my composure, and didn't let my emotions do the talking. I had to really bite my lip though. My mother-in-law, in discussing getting her wife's things, was using language that implied I was responsible for getting her stuff back to her. She suggested I pack the stuff, rent a car, and drive the 4 hours to deliver it. The stuff in question is mostly t-shirts and lotion bottles. So I told her it is not my responsibility. She comes back with, "If you respect me so much, like you say, you would do me the favor." Oh man. Not only is she getting way too far into our business, but she is going to try to manipulate me. I just said that has nothing to do with this and I could say the same thing to you. Please don't attempt to manipulate me again. I'm already giving you lots of respect here by keeping a lot of issues off the table. I can decide to bring it to court and prove infidelity, costing us both a lot of money. I can claim theft of our dog. I can give evidence to her AP's employer, which will get him fired from his youth pastor position and others. I'm trying to make this as affordable and simple as possible. She backed down and will be picking up the stuff. Now I have to wait for them to make a move. I'm guessing they are trying to hire a lawyer and refute the dog ownership, which is the biggest fighting point, yet oddly not brought up. Her mom is probably comforting her and telling her that her multiple illicit affairs are okay, that dragging her husband through the mud, talking about him whatever chance she gets, even while still coming home at night and expecting love and affection, is all okay. Someone in another thread mentioned she might have borderline personality disorder based on some stuff she said. I think she does. Is it odd that they are so worried about such insignificant belongings right now? Yes. Is it odd my wife is not handling this with me? Yes. Should I refuse to deal with her mom? Maybe. Is my wife mentally unstable? Guess so. Do I let them come get her stuff? I don't really want to deal with that. I hate all of this. I am being straightforward and honest with them, and they are trying to pull something on me. I hate that I might have to resort to twisting their arm. I hate that I have always been a meal ticket for my wife and just the sucker paying her bills to her parents. I hate that I can't even discuss this with her civilly and rationally like adults. I hate that her mom lied to me about not knowing her daughter had affairs. I hate that they are so confused by my actions. I hate that I instinctively think of her and want to ask her what kind she wants when I see ice cream at the store. But most of all, I hate how even now I'm the bad guy to them. Update 4, 2 years after divorce. I noticed a few messages asking how everything eventually turned out with my situation. In a nutshell, good. It was a clean break. Absolutely zero communication. No issues whatsoever. She moved on, I moved on. That's it. It was essentially a very expensive breakup. The single one thing that sucks is I had to give up my dog, but looks like he is still living happily with her. After the divorce, I graduated, got a job, and moved. She moved to her parents' guest bedroom and never moved out. She got a low-wage job and hasn't done a thing since. She is dating someone, that's all I know because she has me blocked even though I've never said a thing. I dated a couple of girls, found one that was extremely special and showed me love I didn't know existed. Then I proceeded to lose her. So I'm single and doing extremely well with dating. Literally every single woman I met has been leagues better than my ex-wife, but I would like to be back with my recent girlfriend. Such is life. Got a great job, doing very well financially, while she is 30-something living with her retired parents. So I guess I came out on top and relatively unscathed. Now on to the next story. Story 2. I got thrown out of the house because my sister made up a crazy story about me selling Dr. G's. Now, my parents want to come back into my life because my mom's sick. Growing up, my family valued appearances and achievements highly. My dad, Benjamin, 57M, holds a prestigious job at an insurance company and is well respected in his field. My mom, Olivia, 56F, is a biology professor. The ideal caring mother always there for us. However, everything in our family came with conditions. We had to look and behave perfectly, and perfect was defined by how well we met my parents' expectations. My older sister, Isabella, 30F, or as everyone called her, Bella, was the definition of their ideal. She is an engineer, 4 years older than me. She was incredibly successful and seemed to deal with life easily, always getting praised by everyone, receiving awards, and our parents admired her. On the other hand, I was quieter, more reserved, and a bit rebellious. I was smart but preferred to follow my own path. I had interests that did not always align with my parents' idea of success. Well, I was an English major and they did not exactly like that, but they accepted our differences as long as I stayed within their limits, and I tried to avoid crossing any lines. Despite our differences, I admired Bella. She was everything our parents wanted, and I saw her as someone I could trust and learn from. I never thought she would do something like this to me. 6 years ago, my world turned upside down because of a huge lie from Bella. I was 20, still in college, trying to build my future. Bella, always our parents' favorite, was the golden child. She was accomplished, responsible, and always in their good books. Meanwhile, I felt like I could never measure up, always living in her shadow. Things changed dramatically with Bella a few months before she told that lie. She asked me to help her cover up something risky she was involved in. Basically, she had made some poor choices and wanted me to keep my mouth shut about it. She was mixed up with some shady people and situations that made me uncomfortable and did not really sit right with me, and she wanted me to lie to our parents about it and give her an alibi. She said it was a family duty, claiming I owed her because she had always supported me. However, something felt wrong, and I did not want to get caught up in her plans. I was trying to keep my own life stable, and lying for her seemed like a clear path to disaster. I told her I would not do it, that I did not want to take any risks. She became furious, acting like my refusal was a huge betrayal. Her reaction was intense and even scary. I remember her warning that I would regret crossing her, that she would find a way to make me pay. At the time, I thought it was just drama and assumed she would calm down. Looking back, that moment seemed to set off everything that happened next. Within weeks, Bella started to subtly undermine me, and soon after, she dropped a huge lie on our parents. Then, she told our parents that I was selling drugs at college. This was a huge and terrible lie, and it shocked me. I had never even touched drugs, let alone sold them. But Bella said it so convincingly that my parents believed her without question. To this day, I cannot understand why she did it. We were not particularly close, but we were not enemies either. I mean, she is or was my sister. I could never even imagine she would do something so messed up with me. This is a lie that could actually ruin my future, and in that moment I genuinely thought it did. My dad, Benjamin, reacted like a storm. He did not ask me anything or let me explain. His anger hit me hard, deeper than I expected. I felt his disappointment and disgust, as if I was no longer his daughter. My mom, Olivia, was quiet, but her silence hurt just as much. She looked at me with deep disappointment, as if I had ruined all her dreams for me. Meanwhile, Bella stood to the side, expressionless. She did not say a word or acknowledge the chaos she caused. She just watched as my parents kicked me out. That day, they threw me out of the house. I had no chance to explain or even understand what was happening. I left with nothing and had to drop out of college because I could not pay for it without their support. My future felt like it vanished overnight. In the following months, I stayed with friends, moving from couch to couch and doing whatever work I could find. I felt hopeless. I had big dreams, and everything I was working towards was just gone. I tried to reach out to my parents, hoping they would see the truth. Every call ended in them turning me away. My dad would hang up before I could say anything, and my mom would just repeat her dismissive words, refusing to listen or think they might have been wrong. I kept wishing they would see through Bella's lies and remember who I really was, but they had already decided. In their eyes, I was guilty, and that was the end of it. Time passed and years went by. Gradually, I learned to rebuild my life from scratch. I saved every dollar from my waitressing job and eventually returned to school part-time. It was tough, but I was determined to show myself that I could shape my future even without their help. During this journey, I met people who became my chosen family, friends who recognized my true self and supported me when my own family had turned away. They helped me see my value, aided my healing, and restored my self-belief. In time, I graduated, found a steady job, and started building a life I was proud of. Then, I met my perfect fiancé, Mark, 27M. He was kind and understanding, everything I had been missing. When I shared my family story with him, he did not judge or pity me. Instead, he said that family is not just about blood, and I have the right to choose who I let into my life. With him, I felt truly loved and accepted, and for the first time, I began to think that I did not need my parents' approval to feel complete. As our wedding day neared, thoughts of my family returned. I had not seen them in 6 years. Part of me wanted to reach out, to give them a chance to make amends, but every time I thought about it, painful memories came rushing back. The rejection, the shame, the way they had discarded me without a second thought. Why should they be part of one of the happiest days of my life when they had not been there during my toughest times? Out of nowhere, I got a message from my dad. It was surprising to see his name pop up on my phone after so many years. The message was brief and straightforward. He told me that my mom was very ill and wanted to see me because she missed me. There was no apology or mention of the past, no acknowledgement of the hurt they caused, just a vague note about my mom's sickness and her wish to reconnect. He also mentioned that he knew about my upcoming wedding and that both he and my mom wanted to be involved. It felt strange and heavy to know they suddenly wanted to reach out. Where was this concern when I was struggling to get by after they left me? They missed my graduation, my first job, and literally everything else in my life. Now, just because my mom is sick, they act like those 6 years did not matter, as if I would easily forgive and forget. Seems so unfair. I might sound selfish, but this caught me by surprise, and I did not feel good about it. They were not there for the tough times, but now they wanted to be part of the good moments. A wave of emotions hit me. I thought about my mom being sick and felt guilty. Despite everything, she was still my mother, and the idea of her suffering was hard to deal with. I realized that her wish to see me was not just about the wedding. It might be about finding closure or making peace before it was too late, but forgiving them felt impossible after all they had put me through. The abandonment, the disbelief, the struggles I faced alone. How could I let them back into my life as if nothing had happened? After the text, I received a few more texts from relatives I did not even know existed. They claimed that it was wrong of me to not include my parents in my wedding, and that whatever happened recently should not matter compared to everything they have done for me throughout my life. This really got on my nerves. It was hilarious how they showed up when I did not invite my parents to my wedding but could not help me out when I was practically homeless. I spoke to my fiancé about this, and he straight away asked me to ignore my relatives' texts because they are irrelevant. He has assured me that he will back whatever choice I make, but he also reminded me that my wedding day should focus on us being happy and us enjoying ourselves, not something from the past that hurts and the unresolved feelings that come with it. He asked me to consider what would make me happy in the long run as well, not just for now. I keep wondering if I push them away now, am I only causing myself more pain? Or would allowing them back make things worse for me? I feel conflicted. I have worked hard to create a life without them, finding my way and building my life. Part of me wants to protect myself and is scared that letting them back in could ruin everything I have built. But another part feels guilty, especially with my mom's health being a concern. I cannot overlook that she is trying to reach out now, even if it feels like it is too late. I keep thinking that including them in the wedding might be a way to finally move on and leave the past behind. But then I remembered that they bailed on me based on just Bella's words, without any proof or anything. I do not know if I can just forget about the past 6 years. My wedding is in a few months, and I'm really confused. Should I keep things the way they are, or should I let them back in? To be very honest, I am not sure if I want them back in my life, so I need some opinions. Am I the AITA for refusing to let my parents back into my life after they believed my sister's lies and abandoned me? Update 1. It has been a few weeks since I posted. I read a few comments, and I am relieved that most people think I am not being unreasonable here. Anyway, I still feel like I am caught in a whirlwind after receiving that message from my dad about my mom being sick and wanting to see me. I was really on edge. I thought about blocking their numbers, but I also worried I might regret not giving them a chance. Then, unexpectedly, my sister Bella reached out. Out of the blue, I got a text from her saying she heard I was getting married. She mentioned knowing about mom being sick and wanting to fix things before it was too late. Felt like everything had changed in an instant. Bella, the one who had caused me so much pain, was now talking about family and healing. She expressed how much she missed me and emphasized the need for our family to come together. She said I had always been part of her life and that she wanted us to find peace. But all I could think about was her betrayal that had ruined everything. I was already unsettled by my dad's message, and Bella's text only added to my confusion. What did she expect from me? Did she really think I could just forgive her because of a few nice words? She did not apologize or acknowledge the problems she caused. Instead, she kept talking about how family was the most important thing, especially with Mom's health declining. It all felt insincere, like she was only reaching out now because of her own guilt. I could not help but wonder if there was another reason behind her message, something I was not seeing. She had been so cold and calculating when she lied about me, and I could not shake the feeling that this was more about her image than anything else. The thought of seeing Bella again after so many years felt like reopening an old wound. Still, the fact that my mom was sick made me feel something different. I felt bad for wanting to shut them out when there was a chance she wanted to make amends. But every time I thought about forgiving them, every single thing from the past came rushing back, even stronger. I questioned if they would ever recognize the problems they caused for me. The idea of them at my wedding seemed almost ridiculous, as if they could just show up like proud parents after all this time. I kept thinking about my fiancé's advice to focus on my long-term happiness. My wedding should be a joyful occasion, not a source of stress. But how could I find peace while holding on to all this anger? Could I really move on if I never let them back into my life? I could not picture Bella sitting in the front row as if nothing had happened. It felt wrong to even think about including them after everything they had done. I chose to respond to Bella, but I kept it brief. I told her I needed time to think and was not sure how I felt about her or our parents attending the wedding. I mentioned that I was not sure about how I felt about them given everything that has happened between us. I do not know why, but I hope she would understand. But her reply was just another message about family, with no sign of regret or acknowledgement of her actions. She even had the nerve to say she understood my feelings but hoped I would see the bigger picture and let the past go for Mom's sake. After her response, I felt more confused than ever. I thought taking time to reflect on my feelings would help, but it only made things tougher. Relatives I had not heard from in years started reaching out, telling me to let go of my anger and warning that I would regret it if I did not reconnect with my family soon. It seemed like they only knew part of the story and assumed I was being unreasonable. Their comments stung, but I realized they had no idea what I had been through. This only added to my confusion and frustration. A few days later, I received another message from my dad giving me more information about Mom's health. He did not share many details, but it was clear she was not doing well. He mentioned that she had always loved me and wanted us to be a family again. It felt odd, as if he was trying to make me feel guilty instead of apologizing or recognizing my pain. I questioned whether he understood the effects of their actions. I spent many hours thinking about what I would say if I saw them again. I pictured telling them about the years of struggle, the nights of feeling utterly alone, and the betrayal I still carried. But deep down, I knew it would not change anything. They would likely find a way to justify their behavior or dismiss my feelings, saying I was being dramatic. Still, the thought of my mom being unwell weighed on me. Was I wrong to hold on to my anger when she might be facing something serious? My fiancé has been a great support, reminding me that my feelings are important and that I can set my own boundaries. He promised to stand by me no matter what I chose. I feel fortunate to have someone who truly understands my pain and does not pressure me to forgive just to keep up appearances. He emphasized that the choice is mine, but I can feel the heaviness of it all. As the wedding approaches, the pressure is increasing. I am caught between wanting to let my parents and Bella back into my life for some peace and protecting myself from further hurt. My mom's illness complicates things even more. I worry that if I do not allow them back in now, I might regret it later. Yet, I also fear that opening the door could lead to more heartbreak. Bella's message keeps replaying in my mind, making me wonder if I am being too harsh. But then I recall that she never showed any remorse or acknowledged the pain she caused. How can I move on when the past still feels so fresh? I am left questioning whether forgiving them would truly help me heal or just reopen old wounds. My wedding should be a joyful occasion, but right now it is clouded by these unresolved emotions. I am at a point where I do not know if letting them back in would bring me closure or just more suffering. So here I am, still uncertain and still pondering. Would allowing them back into my life be the right decision, or am I just setting myself up for disappointment? Update 2. Hey, so it has been about 3 weeks since I last posted. A few days after the last update, I finally hit my limit and decided to visit my family. After weeks of putting it off, I could not ignore the fact that my mom was seriously ill. Part of me wanted to keep my distance, but I felt guilty, and I knew I would regret not seeing her one last time if she did not get better. It was an hour-long drive over to their house, and during the drive it was really hard to stay calm, but I kept telling myself I was doing this for my mom, not for Dad or Bella. But that did not make it any easier. I was scared to even see the house again. I mean, I had so many memories there. I spent all of my life up until 6 years back in that house. I was forced to leave it, and now I felt almost forced to visit it again. When I arrived at the house, it felt strange. It had been so long, yet everything looked almost the same. To my surprise, my mom was the only one there, sitting in a chair by the window. I barely recognized her. My dad was not there yet, which was a bit of a relief, but I knew the confrontation was still coming. Seeing her so weak and tired broke my heart. She looked so small, and I just wanted to hug her and cry. I could only think of how much time was wasted. We could have spent so much time together if only Bella did not pull that stunt. I would not have been so shocked at Mom's state if I had the chance to be by her side all these years. I would have been able to help her some way or the other, but that chance was taken away from me by my older sister. Mom looked happy and sad to see me. For the first time in as long as I can remember, I did not see my mom as the authoritative figure I always tried to impress. She was just a mom, simply a person who had made mistakes. She sincerely apologized. She was very straightforward about the fact that she regretted not reaching out to me. She said she had not reached out all these years because she felt ashamed. She said that by the time she realized that Bella lied, it was too late, and she thought I would never look back and forgive her. She also said that she had thought of reaching out to me multiple times. She wrote several letters that she never sent. She apologized so many times. Hearing her express that made me feel weirdly sad but also relieved. There was no talk of family obligations or expectations, no pressure to forgive her or forget about whatever has happened. Just her taking accountability for her mistakes and saying she was sorry. It was overwhelming to take in. A part of me wanted to shout and tell her how hard it was for me, but I could not. I just hugged her and told her it was all right. I really forgave her. It was like I was never mad at her. She was only left with regret, and I did not want to make it any worse. I just wanted to be by her side. My dad walked in, and the atmosphere changed immediately. He entered as if he was in control, acting like he had not done anything wrong. He did not apologize or acknowledge the pain they caused me. Instead, he treated my feelings like a petty issue, suggesting I should move on for the family. It seemed like he believed he was the victim because I had distanced myself for so long. He did not understand my mom's perspective at all. I tried to keep my cool, but anger kept rising inside me. When I expressed how hurt I was about everything that had happened and how I made ends meet in the last 6 years, he dismissed it by saying things like, "Oh, we thought we were doing what was best for the family." He refused to take any accountability for his actions and kept shifting the focus, making it seem like I was at fault for not contacting them over the years. I noticed my mom looked uneasy, but she stayed silent, maybe because she was tired of Dad and our never-ending arguments. My dad continued to push, trying to make it seem like my choice to stay away was unjustified. It was infuriating, and I felt that familiar sense of powerlessness from my childhood, as if my voice did not count. I asked about Isabella and where she was, but they said she could not make it. It felt odd since she had reached out discussing family and forgiveness. Yet when it was time to confront the situation, she was absent. Deep down, I was not really surprised. I figured she would stay away from any real conflict, even if she is the one who started everything. She had created this chaos and left everyone else to deal with it. After the visit, I felt exhausted. Instead of the calm I wanted, I sat quietly while my dad lectured me, thinking he could change my mind about forgiving them. However, I realized I did not need his approval and did not have to fit into a family that had let me go so easily before. Before I left, my mom asked me to return soon. She sounded desperate and looked sad. I was not sure if I would come back, but I could not say goodbye forever. I hugged her and promised to keep in touch, asking her to reach out whenever she wanted or needed to. On the drive back to my house, I could not keep my mind straight. I felt conflicted. My mom's apology felt genuine and meant more to me than I thought, but my dad's attitude and Isabella's absence left me feeling bitter, bringing back the pain I had tried to forget. I wanted to forgive them and move on, but I did not know how to do it without losing my sanity. I forgave Mom. I have nothing against her anymore. But Dad and Bella, I am not quite sure about them. My wedding is in a month, and I am unsure if I will invite them there or even keep them in my life. I am sure I will stay in touch with Mom. I might invite her, but like I said, Dad and Bella, I am not quite sure about them. Maybe it is better to move on without them, keeping a safe distance for my own peace of mind. It is tough, especially knowing my mom may not have much time left. I feel a mix of guilt, anger, and love, and I am still uncertain if I will ever find the closure I seek. I honestly do not really know what my next step will be. I will give an update if anything happens. Update 3. Hey guys, it has been a long time since I gave an update. It has been 6 months, and so many things have happened. I would have given an update sooner, but I just needed to process everything. Mark and I had a small, private wedding. After everything with my family, we wanted a peaceful day focused on us. I decided to invite my mom and dad. My mom was very sick, and I knew I would regret it if she could not attend. It was easier to invite her because she had made an effort with me, and we were okay. She acknowledged her mistakes, and I could understand that she truly wished things had been different. I chose not to invite Bella. It was not to hurt her. I just could not trust her not to create more drama. After the wedding, Bella texted me, upset about not being included. I told her I simply did not want her there and then blocked her number. That felt like a relief, as if I had closed a painful chapter. Unfortunately, almost 2 months after the wedding, my mom passed away. She was not in pain. She passed away peacefully with both me and Dad by her side. I was grateful for the time I had with her, even if it was brief. In her last days, she seemed softer and more like the mom I remembered. Sometimes we would sit in silence, and it felt comforting. I was able to say goodbye, and I will always appreciate that. My mom's funeral was one of the toughest days of my life. It was a simple gathering with just family and a few close friends. I wanted to honor her and celebrate her life. Bella was invited as well, but we thought she would not show up because she never even reached out to us after Mom's death. But on the day of the funeral, she burst in, demanding to know why she was not at the wedding, making everything about her turned chaotic. Her yelling drowned out the nice words being said about my mom. I felt embarrassed and hurt. Dad had reached his limit. He was already struggling with losing Mom. My parents were high school sweethearts. They had spent over 40 years together, and it was clearly the worst thing that had ever happened to him. Bella's selfishness pushed him over the edge. He stood up and told her to leave. He said she was disrespecting Mom's memory and that he never wanted to see her again. The room was filled with tension. Everyone was stunned into silence. I felt mixed emotions. Part of me was relieved that Dad finally confronted her, but I was also anxious about the consequences. Bella stormed out, complaining about how unfair it was, but I thought it was necessary to protect the day from her drama. It felt like a turning point for both my dad and me. Even though we were not close, we both agreed that Mom deserved better than a chaotic funeral. Strangely, this experience brought my dad and me a bit closer. Our relationship is not great, and there is still some tension, but we have managed to be civil. He has not apologized for his part in everything, but he is respecting my boundaries now, and he said he would like to have me in his life. We may not be close, but it is peaceful, and that is enough for now. Baby steps, I guess. Being in the position I am and right now feels weird. I once thought I needed a big moment of forgiveness, but now I see that I just needed to let go. Losing my mom was hard, but it brought me closure. I can cherish the good memories of her and leave the rest behind. Regarding Bella, I do not intend to reconnect with her. I have realized that not everyone understands the problems they create can affect people, and that is fine. I do not need her in my life anymore. Now, I am concentrating on my life with Mark and building something positive with him. Lastly, I want to express my gratitude to everyone for their support during this tough time. Your kind words and understanding have meant so much to me. Sharing my story has been a relief, and knowing that people care has made a difference. I appreciate everyone who took the time to read my updates and share their thoughts. It truly helps to know I am not alone in this journey. Thank you for being there for me. Now on to the next story. Story 3. My wife of almost 3 decades had an affair when my son was a teenager. Lied to him about it, blamed me for our estrangement, and I only discovered the truth through my daughter. I'm a guy in my late 50s and I've been married to my wife Isabel for a long time. We're talking close to 3 decades. I've always thought we had a pretty good life, but some recent events have made me question everything. I came to this country as an immigrant. My biggest goal was to make enough money to take care of my parents. They sacrificed a lot for me, and I wanted to give them everything they ever wanted. Sadly, they are no longer in this world. I worked hard even back in college. I was a bit of a nerd, always focused on my studies and my future. I wasn't really into the party scene. I eventually started my own company, and it's been successful. I started it before Isabel and I got married, and it's been growing steadily for the past 25 years. We have 2 kids, Jason, our oldest, and Rachel, our daughter. Jason was always my little buddy when he was growing up. We were really close. Rachel came along about 8.5 years after Jason. It was a surprise, but a good one. I remember holding Rachel for the first time, and I just felt this overwhelming need to protect her. I'd do anything for her. Right after Jason was born, Isabel had some health problems. She was in and out of the hospital quite a bit. Because of that, I took on most of the childcare. I wanted her to rest and recover. My company was flexible enough that I could work from home a lot of the time, so I became pretty much a full-time parent. I was there for all the big moments. Jason's first steps, teaching him to ride a bike and patching him up after he fell, teaching him to play basketball. I can see that Isabel started to resent my closeness with Jason. She'd say things like I was hogging him or that he was too attached to me. It always felt unfair because I was just trying to be a good dad and help her out. She never really spent any one-on-one time with him. I even tried to encourage her to take him out for ice cream or just go for a drive. But she always seemed unsure of herself. She'd say she didn't know how to connect with him, and she'd always ask me to come along. Jason never said anything to me about it, about him and his mom not being close. Kids don't always talk about that kind of thing, I guess. Then Rachel came along. Like I said, it was unexpected, but we were happy. Isabel had mentioned before that she'd love to have a mini version of herself. Rachel ended up with Isabel's blue eyes and my blonde hair. Having a second child was a lot easier in some ways. We'd learned from our mistakes with Jason, and there was less stress overall. I felt different about having a daughter. I don't know how to explain it exactly, but I felt even more protective of Rachel, more careful, I guess. I was a little worried about the age gap between Jason and Rachel, being 8.5 years apart, but I shouldn't have been. Jason was a fantastic older brother. He was always looking out for her, watching her sleep, playing with her. They were really close, which was great to see. It was clear, even early on, that Jason had a soft spot for his little sister, and she adored him. They do everything together, from building forts in the living room to playing video games. It warmed my heart to see them getting along so well despite the age difference. I honestly couldn't have asked for a better relationship between my 2 kids. So, how did Isabel and I even get together? It's kind of a messy story, to be honest. The very first time I saw her, it was at a college party. She was, well, completely drunk. I thought she was beautiful, but definitely not someone I'd ever have a chance with. I figured she was way out of my league. We met again at another party, and this time she came up to me. She asked me to dance. We didn't really dance, more like just shuffled around and laughed a lot. It was fun, but I still wasn't sure about her. Isabel was everything I wasn't. She was smart, really confident, and a total extrovert. She had no problem speaking her mind, even in front of a crowd. She was always giving me these hints, these signals that she wanted me to ask her out, but I didn't. I wasn't the type to date just for fun. I had my goals, and I thought dating her would just be a distraction. I thought it was a waste of time. Then, after we'd met maybe 4 or 5 times at different parties, she cornered me. She straight up asked me why I hadn't asked her out. I was honest with her. I told her I thought it would be a waste of time because she was always partying, and I was focused on my studies and my future. She told me I needed to relax and have some fun, that I was spending too much time studying. She actually made some good points, I have to admit. But here's where things started to get complicated. Isabel had a drinking problem. It became pretty clear pretty fast. It was like she had 2 personalities. A few drinks, she was sweet and fun, but if she had too much, she turned into a completely different person. I called her Miss Jekyll and Hyde in my head. There was this one really bad night at a bar. We were all celebrating. This bar had a cheap drink special. Early in the evening, Isabel got really drunk. She bumped into a server, and a drink spilled all over her dress. She just exploded. She started screaming at the server, pulling her hair, and using some really awful language. The server was terrified and kept apologizing, but Isabel wouldn't let it go. The manager came over and asked us to leave. Isabel's friends, instead of calming her down, started egging her on. One of them even smashed a glass. I paid for my drinks and Isabel's separately. Isabel was still yelling, demanding that the server pay to have her dress cleaned. It was a mess. The police ended up getting called, and the whole group of them got arrested. Their parents had to bail them out. It was incredibly embarrassing, and I was furious. I couldn't believe how she'd acted. It was a complete overreaction to a simple accident. After that whole bar incident, I decided I was done with Isabel's party friends. They started texting me, calling me disloyal and saying I wasn't a good friend to Isabel. They basically uninvited me from any future parties. Honestly, I was fine with that. I didn't want to be around people who acted like that. Isabel, though, wanted to apologize to them. She thought we should all stick together and support each other. I flat out refused. I told her that if my parents ever had to bail me out of jail, they'd be furious. I come from a very different background where that kind of behavior is just not acceptable. Isabel didn't really get it. She came from a different upbringing, and she thought I was being too strict. She just couldn't understand my perspective. It was a big difference between us. After that, I stopped going to parties with her and her friends. Fast forward to after graduation. Her friend group started to fall apart, which was hard for her to accept. I got a job in a different city. Isabel insisted on moving in with me. She said she'd be the perfect roommate, that it would help her focus on finding a job and getting serious about life. Well, that didn't exactly happen. For the first 6 months, I paid for everything. Rent, bills, groceries, you name it. She wasn't contributing at all. I even asked her to just cook dinner since I was working all day. But she struggled even with that. Most of the time, she'd just sit on the sofa and watch old dramas on the TV. I tried to encourage her to get out of the house, go to the park, maybe join a gym. She said she was feeling depressed. I felt bad, but I also knew she needed to do something. I finally had a serious talk with her about how much money I was spending. I told her I couldn't keep supporting both of us. It was putting a huge strain on me. She eventually got a job, but then she started spending money like crazy. It seemed like every time she was bored, she'd be online buying perfumes and makeup. I lost count of how many boxes were delivered to our door, all for her. It was one thing after another. It felt like as soon as she started making money, she found ways to spend it just as quickly. It was frustrating because we weren't saving anything. While Isabel was spending, I was saving. I was always careful with my money. I managed to save up enough to buy a car, a decent one. It was a big purchase for me. When Isabel saw the car, she demanded to see my bank account. She couldn't believe how much I had saved. It was like a switch flipped in her head. Suddenly, she started talking about investing her money and being more responsible. She actually stopped buying so much useless stuff. She finally learned how to save. It was a relief, to be honest, because I saw this positive change in her. I decided to propose. We got engaged, but before we got married, I had another goal. I wanted to start my own business. I had been planning it for a while. I quit my job, which was a stable, well-paying job, to take the leap. I had saved enough money that I didn't need to rely on Isabel financially, which was important to me. Those early days of starting the business were tough. Isabel was supportive emotionally, at least. She'd listen when I was stressed or frustrated. Starting a business was really emotionally draining for me. I'm a perfectionist, which made things even harder. I had a really hard time letting go of control and delegating tasks to other people. I wanted everything to be perfect, and it was hard to trust others to do things the way I wanted them done. Once I felt like the company was stable, we got married. After we got married, the business kept growing. It did really well over the next 25 years. I was finally able to provide for my parents the way I always wanted. Isabel became a stay-at-home mom after we had Jason. It seemed like the best option at the time given my work and her health issues after the birth. It was a decision we made together, but it also meant she was more dependent on me financially. Things started to change when Jason became a teenager. It was the usual stuff. Mood swings, wanting to spend more time with his friends, locking himself in his room, listening to music. He just stopped hanging out with me like he used to. It was a normal part of growing up, but it still hurt. I felt this gap growing between us. I tried to be supportive, though. I'd remind him that I was always there for him if he needed anything. Rachel, on the other hand, stayed really close to me. She was always so excited to see me when I got home from work. She'd run to the door to greet me. I used to bring her little gifts sometimes, a teddy bear or some flowers, hiding them behind my back to surprise her. Seeing her face light up was the best part of my day. I sometimes wondered if Jason was a little jealous of the attention I gave Rachel. It was never my intention to make him feel excluded, but I could see how it might look that way. Kids don't always understand those things. I tried to make sure I was still there for Jason, even if he was pushing me away a bit. The bigger problem, though, was Isabel. She very clearly favored Rachel. She was always pointing out how much Rachel looked like her, how they had the same personality. It felt like she was ignoring Jason, or at least not giving him the same kind of attention. I tried to talk to her about it, urging her to spend some time with Jason. She'd just brush it off, saying he needed his space and that I was overthinking things. They barely talked to each other, Isabel and Jason, just small talk, nothing meaningful. She just didn't seem interested in building a real relationship with him. And whenever I tried to get them to talk, to bridge that gap, Isabel would get defensive. She'd accuse me of taking Jason's side, of undermining her authority. It was frustrating because I was just trying to help them connect. I wanted them to have a good relationship, but she made it so difficult. It felt like she was actively pushing him away, and I couldn't understand why. Things got worse with Jason. He started talking back to Isabel, which wasn't like him. He started sneaking out at night to drink with his friends. Then there was the DUI incident. He took my car keys without permission and got caught by the police. Luckily, it was his first offense, and they just gave him a warning. I was furious. I gave him a serious lecture about how dangerous it was, how he could have hurt himself or someone else. But Isabel, for some reason, defended him. She said things like young people needed to have fun sometimes and that it was just like when she was young. This caused the first really big fight in our family. I couldn't believe she was being so lenient about something so serious. She accused me of being too strict and out of touch with teenagers, which just made me angrier. It felt like she was completely undermining me and condoning his dangerous behavior. After that, Jason just shut down. He told me he wanted to be left alone. He refused to go to therapy, saying he didn't need anyone's help. He became defiant, talking back to both of us, but especially to Isabel. The school started sending home complaints about his incomplete assignments and his behavior in class. He was like a completely different person. I tried to talk to him, to find out what was going on, but he wouldn't open up. He'd either stay silent or say something dismissive to get me to leave him alone. It was incredibly frustrating. Around this time, I started traveling more for work. My company was expanding, and I needed to be on the road a lot. Looking back, I know I wasn't around as much as I should have been. Maybe I should have made more of an effort to talk to Jason, even though he was pushing me away. I wish I could have done something, held on to him somehow, and taken away whatever was bothering him. I felt helpless watching him spiral and not knowing how to stop it. Then came the night that changed everything. I had just gotten back from a work trip. I walked into the house, and I could hear Isabel and Jason screaming at each other. It was loud and it sounded really bad. I rushed into the living room, and it was a complete mess. There were broken glasses and plates all over the floor. Jason was standing there, facing Isabel, yelling at her. He was saying he hated her. I'd never heard him talk like that before. I stepped between them, trying to protect Isabel, even though I didn't know what was going on. That's when Jason turned on me. He called me a coward, a deadbeat father. Those words, they really shook me. I didn't understand where it was coming from. He said our marriage was a sham, that we'd been lying to him his entire life. He said he was sick of pretending we were a perfect family, that he was disgusted by us. He said he didn't want to live with us anymore. Isabel intervened, but not in a helpful way. She sternly told Jason that he was too young to make those kinds of accusations about our marriage. She was basically telling him his feelings weren't valid because of his age. She wasn't trying to understand why he was so upset. I tried to calm things down. I told Jason that name-calling wasn't going to solve anything. I asked him to apologize, but he refused. He scoffed at me and said he meant every word. He said he blamed me for everything. He even said I didn't deserve to have children. Hearing my own son say those things to me felt awful. I was completely blindsided. I had no idea what had caused this level of anger and resentment. And then I did something I never thought I'd do. In a moment of pure anger, I slapped Jason. I've never hit anyone in my life. The second I did it, I regretted it. Guilt and shame just washed over me. I stepped back, and I couldn't even believe I'd done that. My hand was actually trembling. Everyone was in shock. Jason just clutched his cheek and staggered back. Tears were welling up in his eyes. He didn't say anything. He just ran upstairs. He called Isabel's parents, his grandparents. They came over pretty quickly. They knew something serious had happened, and they reprimanded me for hitting Jason, but they also seemed to understand that the situation was complicated. Jason wouldn't even look at me. I tried to apologize, but he ignored me. He left with his grandparents. He didn't even say goodbye to Rachel, who was at a friend's birthday party at the time. After he left, Isabel just gave me this half-hearted hug and said I should apologize to him later, like she wasn't really grasping how serious this was. I tried to reach out to Jason every day. I went to his grandparents' house, but he locked himself in his room and wouldn't see me. I sent him countless texts, telling him to talk to me. He cut off all contact except for accepting money from me for his education. That was the only communication we had. Isabel told me the argument had been about Jason's homework and his defiant behavior. She made it sound like a typical teenage argument that had just gotten out of hand. At first, I believed her, given how Jason had been acting lately. But later, I started to have doubts. Jason's reaction had been so extreme. It didn't make sense for it to just be about homework. When I expressed my doubts to Isabel, she got angry. She accused me of always doubting her and never trusting her judgment. It was another fight, and it just made things even worse. I felt completely lost. Jason ended up getting a full scholarship to college. It was a good school, and I was proud of him. Even though we weren't speaking, I sent him a text congratulating him and apologizing again for everything. His response was short and brutal. He asked me to stop sending him messages. He said I was no longer his father. It was like he was echoing what he'd said that night about me being a deadbeat father. It broke my heart all over again. The next few years were hard. I missed Jason all the time. I thought about him constantly, wondering how he was doing, what he was up to. Rachel was the only one who still had contact with him. She'd give me occasional updates, but it wasn't the same as talking to him myself. She knew about what happened that night, the fight and the slap. She understood how much I regretted it. I think she was the only one who really did. We just didn't talk about Jason as a family. Isabel never mentioned him, and I didn't bring him up because it always led to an argument or just a heavy silence. Then, just recently on Rachel's birthday, everything changed. She spent the whole day with Jason at an adventure park. I was happy they were spending time together, but I was also a little anxious. I stayed up late waiting for her to get home. I wanted to make sure she got back safe, and honestly, I was hoping to maybe see Jason, even if just for a moment. Isabel was already asleep. This wasn't unusual. She often went to bed early, leaving me to handle things. When Rachel got home, she looked disturbed. I asked her how her day was, and she just shook her head. Then she asked me something that completely threw me. "Dad, do you know the real reason Jason left?" She said Jason missed me, which surprised me given his last text. But then she said he told her something that she found hard to believe. She suggested I check my old emails that Jason had emailed me years ago. At first, I thought she must have misunderstood. I checked my Gmail account, the one I use all the time, and there was nothing. Then I remembered this really old email address I used to use, mostly for Facebook. I hadn't used it in years. I barely remembered the password, but I managed to recover the account. And there they were. Dozens of unread emails from Jason, sent over the years, every time he was having a difficult day. I started reading them, and it was like reading a horror story. They were filled with his pain, his struggles, his feelings of betrayal. The main thing, the thing that made my blood run cold, was this. Jason had come home from school one day and found Isabel in bed with someone else. He was furious, understandably, and he yelled at her. Isabel threatened him. She told him that if he told me, it would lead to our divorce. She claimed we had an open marriage and that I was also having affairs during my work trips. All complete lies. She made him feel like it was his fault, like he was the one who was wrong. He was disgusted and confused, and completely heartbroken. He'd been going to therapy, and through that and talking to Rachel, he'd realized that Isabel had lied to him, but he felt so guilty. He'd walked out on me, mistreated me, and he didn't know how to face me after all that. He regretted not opening up sooner. Reading those emails, it was like a punch after punch after punch. I felt shock, sadness, betrayal, and then just pure rage. My whole life, my whole marriage, felt like it had fallen apart. I realized how much Isabel had deceived me, how much time I'd lost with Jason because of her lies. I don't know what to do, Reddit. My life is horrible, and I feel stupid for not checking my emails sooner. Everything could have been avoided if Jason spoke to me directly. There were no reasons for the stupid mails. So what should I do, Reddit? Update. So, Reddit, it's been a while and I wanted to update you guys sooner, but didn't have much time. Anyways, here is the update. I couldn't just sit there with this information. I had to confront Isabel. I woke her up and asked her point blank, "Why would you lie to our son about something so serious?" At first, she denied everything. She claimed Jason was making things up, that he'd always had a problem with authority. She was trying to make me doubt him, to gaslight me into believing her version of events. But I had proof. I had printed out Jason's emails. I showed them to her. Faced with the evidence, she couldn't keep up the denial. But instead of apologizing, she started minimizing it. She said it was a one-time mistake, that it was meaningless. I was furious. I pointed out the years of estrangement from Jason, the emotional damage she'd caused. I said, "You let me believe our son hated me for something I did in a moment of anger, when all along it was your lies that drove him away." She finally broke down in tears. She confessed to the affair. She said it happened when Jason was a teenager, and she recounted the same details that Jason had written in his emails. She said she lied because she was afraid of losing me, that she used the lie to shut Jason up. It was all about her. She wouldn't tell me who the affair was with, but honestly, I didn't even care at that point. The damage was done. It didn't matter who it was. Then she said something that just, I don't even have words for it. She confessed that she had never liked Jason. She said she'd always wanted daughters, and that was another reason she couldn't bond with him. I just stared at her. How could you say that about your own child? How could you deliberately favor one child over another? I asked her those questions, but she didn't have an answer. She just sat there crying. There was no remorse, no understanding of the pain she'd caused. Looking at her, I felt nothing but anger. I told her, "I can't even look at your face without seeing red." I said, "I hate my wife so much." After that confrontation, there was no going back. I knew immediately that I wanted a divorce. There were no doubts in my mind. I told Isabel to move out immediately. She pleaded with me to reconsider, but it was no use. She'd broken my trust completely, and there was no repairing the damage. Rachel had seen the fight and the aftermath, and she'd put the pieces together. She was furious with Isabel. She refuses to speak to her. I contacted Jason. I needed to talk to him to clarify things further. He was guarded at first, understandably, but I just broke down. I told him how much I missed him, how sorry I was for everything. He started to get emotional, too. He admitted he regretted leaving home that night. He wished he could turn back time and apologize to me instead of running away. I feel terribly sorry for my son. He went through so much, and it was all because of Isabel's lies and manipulation. She manipulated the entire situation just to hide her affair, and for years she blamed me and the slap for the problems with Jason. It was a pattern with her, always shifting the blame, never taking responsibility. I realized she never actually missed Jason, never reached out to him. She used the situation to make me feel guilty. I wish I had known the truth sooner. Both of my children, Jason and Rachel, are on the same page. They both agree that I should divorce Isabel. They don't want anything to do with her, and honestly, neither do I. I'm starting the divorce process, and it's going to be messy, but I'm ready to move on with my life. I'm finally starting to rebuild my relationship with Jason, and that's the most important thing to me. Now on to the next story. Story 4. While I was waiting at the airport for our honeymoon departure, my husband called to tell me he couldn't make it because his ex texted him about an emergency. My husband and I got married about a month ago, and this week we were supposed to go on our honeymoon. But while I was waiting at the airport, he just texted me that he wouldn't be able to make it because he had to attend to an emergency situation that his ex-wife had texted him about. For context, my husband is a bit of a workaholic, so he had a client meeting the morning that we were supposed to leave for our honeymoon. Since it was an important client, he had told me to get to the airport and he would drive there from his office itself. That's why we had to come to the airport separately. I was already pretty miffed about that because I really thought that he could postpone that meeting. Then, on top of that, when he texted me that he had to be with his ex because of an emergency, I just lost it. I decided to get flight tickets for another destination and travel to be with my sister. I did not even respond to any of his messages or apologies until yesterday. But even then, I just sent him a couple of pictures of me dancing at a club, and that's made our families very upset. Our flight was 3 days ago, and since then, he hasn't stopped apologizing. He realized that I did not come back home when he couldn't make it to the airport, but instead took another flight and visited my sister. Yesterday, I was very upset about everything that was going on, so my sister took me to a club, and we ended up dancing and getting drunk, which is why I decided to click a bunch of photos of myself and then send them to him. The purpose had been to make him feel bad, but he went and told everybody in the family, and now people are scolding me because they think that it was very insensitive of me to disregard the emergency itself. For context, his ex had called him because she had tripped on something and twisted her ankle. Her parents don't live in the same state as us, but I feel like she could have called her friends instead. She called my husband, her ex-husband, and he's the one who took her to the ER. Later on, after I landed, I did receive a couple of texts from him explaining the entire situation to me. But that just made me even more upset because I feel like she could have called anybody else on this planet, but she chose to call my husband, and he chose to ditch our honeymoon for this. He didn't even have the decency to call me. He had just texted me that he had to miss the flight, and he hadn't even told me about what this emergency could possibly be. He didn't feel the need to explain anything to me until he had dealt with the situation at hand, and that's what's bugging me. This is not his situation to deal with. He could have contacted any of their common friends and sent them to her. At least, that's what I would have done in his place because he knows that I don't like his ex, so I wouldn't risk it. But everybody else says that I'm being too insensitive and my jealousy is making me look like a pathetic, insecure person right now. I don't agree with that, though. I feel like his ex should have called somebody else for help, and my husband shouldn't have gone, especially at the cost of our honeymoon. But given the reaction of both our families, I'm afraid that I might have gone a little too overboard with my behavior towards him. So, am I being mad at my husband for skipping our honeymoon so he could be with his ex for a medical emergency? Update 1. Okay, I did not want to speak to my in-laws right now because things are pretty heated, but I did explain the situation to my family. I've already been very upset with my husband for the past couple of days because I feel like after we got married, he's been taking me for granted. In fact, I would actually go further back and say that this has been going on for a while now. Ever since we got engaged, he's been spending all his time at work, and while I usually don't mind that, it's been getting a bit excessive. He's been working like crazy over this promotion to the extent that he was even considering postponing the wedding until after he had his promotion, but I put my foot down at that point. So, yes, it's been a little insane and we've been having a lot of petty, bickering kind of fights. Before we got married, I was mostly trying to keep my cool since I thought that this was just a phase. He would get a little less intense about work with time, but that didn't happen clearly. And then, the thing with his ex. I know that in my post, I probably came off as a very insecure person, and I don't blame anybody for thinking that way because anybody who doesn't know the whole story would probably believe that I am the bad guy here. Honestly, though, I feel like I have my reasons since he and his ex have a very complicated history. They started dating in college, they were together for 3 years, and got married at 23. Then they stayed married for another 3 years before filing for divorce due to incompatibility issues. 2 years later, he met me, and we started dating, and he had always been very upfront about his relationship with his ex. He had told me that she had been a very important part of his life, and they had continued to be friends after their divorce because it had been an amicable situation. Before I met her for the first time, I was not insecure at all, but then I saw how she acted around him, and I wouldn't say that I felt insecure, but I would say that I felt very uneasy. For context, they still have a group of friends from when they were in college, and they try to meet every couple of months. So, after we had been together for almost a year, my husband took me to meet his friends, and his ex was going to be there like she always was. I knew that, and I was expecting her, and I thought that I was going to be mentally prepared to meet her, and in the beginning it actually went well. She was quite warm to me and she seemed nice, but then as the evening got on, things just got weird. I don't know how to explain it, but all of a sudden, it started becoming very clear to me that she was obviously not over him. I don't know how to be specific about it, but just from her behavior, I could tell that something was off. She was trying to talk to him the entire evening. She would start pouting if he did not pay her enough attention, and even though she did not try to be mean to me, she totally acted like I didn't even exist at all for the rest of the evening. The drunker she got, the less inhibited she seemed to be. So by the end of the evening, I was quite uncomfortable with the whole thing, and I made my opinions very clear to my husband. At first, he pretended like he didn't know what I was talking about, but then when he noticed that I was getting upset, he told me that he had noticed that she had been acting weird, but reassured me that this was the first time that this had happened after the divorce. He told me that they had met a couple of times for dinner and drinks with their friends even after the divorce, and she had behaved completely normally. But maybe this time, since she knew that I was going to be there, she probably got a bit insecure and started acting weird, and maybe it was possible that she was not completely over him. I could understand that. She had been with him for a really long time, so maybe it was hard for her to see him with another person. But I trusted my husband completely, and I knew that if I told him he could not see her anymore or whatever, it would cause a lot of problems for him. He doesn't have a lot of friends at work because he's so fiercely competitive, and since he used to move around a lot when he was younger, he doesn't have any significant friendships from his childhood either. So, this group of friends from college, that's pretty much all that he has. As far as I was concerned, I don't think that anybody apart from me and my husband picked up on the fact that his ex had been acting weirdly the entire evening. I knew that if I told him I did not want him seeing her again, he would have to stop meeting his friends, and that would end up isolating him completely. Obviously, I couldn't expect all his friends to accommodate my feelings and stop hanging out with somebody they'd been friends with for so many years just because I felt a bit uneasy about her behavior, especially when they probably didn't even know what was going on. So that's why I didn't make a big deal out of it, and since I trusted my husband completely, I knew that she could act as insecure as she wanted to. It was not going to make a difference to him because even that evening when I was there for the first time ever, he just kept ignoring her and made sure that I felt prioritized. He continued meeting his friends, and I knew that his ex was there, but I didn't go after that because I didn't like her much. And then at our wedding, she was invited because I knew that if we were inviting his entire friend circle, it would be weird if we excluded her, especially since they were on good terms. Besides, I really didn't want her to think that I was insecure about her. So we invited her and she attended, and surprisingly, she behaved differently that day. She was nice to me and mostly just kept to herself, so that was good. That was pretty much the last interaction that I had with her, and I thought things were cool, but then this incident took place. Now, obviously, you guys probably know where I'm heading with this. The thing is, all his friends knew that he was going on his honeymoon on this particular day, and I just thought that it was a pretty big coincidence for her to have hurt herself on that particular day. And I found it even more strange that they have so many common friends, yet she chose to call him even though she's not even the closest to him anymore, neither emotionally nor geographically. I know that one of their friends literally lives a couple of blocks away from her, so she could have just as easily called him instead, but she chose to call my husband specifically. And even though his office is pretty far away from her home, he went instead of calling his friends and telling them to be there for her. Now, this, combined with the fact that he had already been acting very annoying for the past couple of months just because he wanted a promotion at work, it just got to me. We had already been fighting a lot because of his workaholic tendencies, and he knew that I really didn't like his ex, so that was just the cherry on top for me. But what I was mostly upset about was that he didn't even call me to explain the situation to me. He just texted me and left it at that, as if I would just have to understand and deal with it. Yes, I did take a flight to my sister's place out of anger because I just didn't want to be alone at the time. I don't think I did anything wrong, especially when he had already decided that he was not going to make it to the honeymoon. And then there is also the fact that if he really wanted to make it up to me and genuinely apologize, he should have just taken a flight to where I am and done it in person. He definitely knows where I am. I've been posting stories with my sister, so it's not like he's in the dark about that. If he wanted to show me how sorry he was, he could have come over and apologized to me, and I probably would have forgiven him because he knows that I'm a sucker for big romantic gestures. And the thing that I did by sending him a bunch of photos of me having fun at the bar, getting drunk, and dancing, the intent of that was to make him upset. I didn't think he was going to drag our families into it because I didn't do that, and I thought that we were above this kind of thing. After all, he did really hurt me by skipping our honeymoon for the sake of his ex, but then I didn't go complaining to his parents, so I don't understand why he felt the need to do that. And I was already pretty angry with him. Now I feel even worse. My sister has been my only solace in this whole situation. She's been defending me nonstop to our parents, and this morning they finally acknowledged that maybe I did have a point and saw my side of things. I don't blame them for being upset with me because initially they did not know everything that had been going on with us. They had no idea about the problem that I have been having with him regarding the whole workaholic thing, and then also the situation with his ex, which was not very nice to begin with. But at this point, I don't really know what to do because ever since I sent him those pictures, he has stopped trying to contact me. His parents are still texting me, telling me that I need to talk to him and apologize to him for being so petty, but he himself hasn't been saying anything. I'm planning on going back home in a couple of days so I can talk to him about this in person because I don't think that phone calls and messages are going to do me any good at this point. Right now, though, I just feel upset about this whole thing. But still a huge thanks to everyone who commented on my post because I really feel like I needed to get these things off my chest. Even though my sister is here for me all the time, I felt like telling strangers about this would at least help me get a clearer perspective, and that definitely did work. Update 2. I bought flight tickets to fly back home today. It's been 2 days since my update, and my in-laws are still texting me. But still no word from my husband. I guess he's really upset about the pictures that I sent him. But it wasn't even like I was with a bunch of men or anything. There were mostly women in the background. Since a lot of you had assumed that I was with a lot of men in the club, I just needed you guys to know that that's not what happened. I get why he's upset, though. I would probably feel the same way if I were in his place. But then I don't think he understands why I'm upset. If he did, he would have made more of an effort to get in touch with me. But all he did was just call and text, and I really don't think that's enough, especially considering the gravity of the situation. Had this been any other normal trip, I probably wouldn't have been that upset. But this was supposed to be our honeymoon. For God's sake. And it's really frustrating for me that he doesn't seem to understand that because he had been apologizing like this was some totally normal thing to happen. In fact, I've even told a couple of my friends about this, and they told me that my reaction was completely normal, especially given the fact that I already did not trust his ex, and he knew that. He did not think that was important for him to prioritize me instead. Even my parents have apologized to me now since they are aware of the entire situation, not just his side, but they have also told me that if I want to make this marriage work, I'm going to have to suck it up and talk to him first when I go home so I can just at least break the ice between us. The thing is, I'm not sure if I really want to do that because I don't think I'm at fault. Yes, maybe sending those pictures was a petty thing to do, but then he went and complained about it to my parents and his parents as if they were going to punish me like a little teenager. I mean, that's petty too, so I guess we can call it even, at least on that front. And I understand that my parents are giving me advice from a place of concern because they really want my marriage to work out, and so do I, because regardless of everything that has happened, I still do think that I love him, and I'm sure that if I talk to him, I'll know that he loves me too. But then love is not enough. I have to know that he respects me and my opinions as well, and right now I don't feel that way because he's been treating this situation so casually that I don't even think that he's taking my anger seriously. And that's a problem for me because I've already mentioned it in the first update. I did not like his ex at any point in time, and the only reason I did not ever ask him to stop hanging out with her was because I knew that it would be asking for a lot since he would have to cut off his only friends. I'm a generally trusting person, but I feel like even my trust has its limits, and this is crossing a line. Also, the fact that he hasn't texted me himself after I sent him those pictures or made any effort at all to get in touch with me or talk to me is just messing with me. My sister honestly believes that I should just stay with her for a couple of days more until he shows up to apologize or until I think that it's time for me to move on, and I can't deal with this anymore. Honestly, I have to say that I'm tempted by her offer because that really would teach him a lesson, but then I don't want to be that petty either. After all, we have been together for a considerable amount of time, we are married now, and even though we have had our fair share of problems so far, we have always managed to work through it. And even though I don't feel very confident about it, I do think that if I talk to him, at least I can give it a chance to work. I don't want to give up on this without even trying, but my only dilemma right now is that maybe he's ready to do that because he's not trying at all. I don't even know what to feel anymore. I feel like I'm rambling senselessly, but I just need to talk about these things. I don't want to talk to my friends or family about this because I feel like they will have their own opinions, their advice and all that, and right now I just want to vent without hearing any of that. Anyway, my point is that I'm very upset that after those pictures, he just completely gave up trying, and now, just because I was upset with him and did something out of anger, it's suddenly my responsibility to repair our relationship. I don't know how to feel about that, but then if I really want to make this marriage work, I know that I'm going to have to just suck it up and do it. So that's why I'm going back home, and hopefully we will be able to sort this out. If not, then I don't know what to expect because the alternative is so bad, I don't even want to say it out loud. Update 3. So I flew back home today early in the morning, and to my surprise, when I came back home, the house was locked. I knew that my husband wasn't at work because it was around 8:21 in the morning, and he didn't leave for work until 9 o'clock. That was really weird. And then when I entered the house, I was even more surprised because it looked like it hadn't been cleaned for days. I immediately started calling my husband, but he did not answer the phone. Then around 9 o'clock in the morning, he finally picked up, and when I told him that I was back home and asked him where he was, he told me to stay there so he could drive back home. I had no idea what was going on, but I still stayed, even though I had a really bad feeling about this situation because he was not at home. Of course, my first thought was that he must have been staying with his ex, and I already knew that if that was actually the truth, I was going to leave. There was no way that I was going to stay with him knowing that he had spent the past couple of days with his ex, knowing that I didn't like her. But like an idiot, I still wanted to give him a chance to at least explain himself because I thought that maybe there was another, more innocent and reasonable explanation. Anyway, within a couple of minutes, he came back home, and without wasting any time, I confronted him and asked him where he had been. Then, of course, just as I had expected, he told me that he had been staying with his ex for the past couple of days, ever since the day of the flight. So for almost a week, he had been staying with his ex, and he didn't even think it was important to mention it to me, or more likely, he didn't tell me on purpose because he knew that it would make me even more upset. But whatever it was, the bottom line was that he hadn't told me. I immediately started freaking out as soon as he said that. I started yelling at him because I was already very upset with him, and I just knew that this was going to happen. He tried to get defensive, but then I asked him if he had been going to work, and he told me he had been working from home. That was the last straw because even when I had requested him to switch to working from home for a couple of days or just take a few days off of work so we could prepare for our wedding together, he had declined and said that this promotion was too important to him to sacrifice his work. He looked down on work-from-home culture, so he didn't want to risk anything, but now, just because he wanted to take care of his ex, he was ready to do that. He tried to tell me that her parents are quite aged, so he couldn't expect them to come over to take care of her, especially when they need somebody to take care of them, and all their friends had been too busy, so they only left him, and having the kind of relationship that they did, he felt that it would be really rude to decline since she was injured. It was very difficult to do things for herself, and that's why he had decided to stay with her. He reassured me that he had been sleeping on the couch and that it had been purely platonic, but it made no difference to me. He could have been sleeping in her basement for all I cared. The fact of the matter was, he had hidden this very important fact from me, and like a fool, I had been beating myself up about those pictures that I had sent him, all while he had been staying with his ex in her house. In comparison, what I had done was literally nothing, and he had already sent those pictures to our parents to make a big deal out of this, so it wasn't even like this went unpunished. I had to face the music for what I did, even though it wasn't as bad as what he was doing. And now I told him that it was about time that he faced repercussions for his actions as well. I hadn't unpacked yet, so I just grabbed my bags and started walking out, but then he told me that he was just trying to be there for his ex as a friend, and it would be really cruel of him to decline when she had requested him to stay with her. He kept trying to explain himself as if this was a very reasonable thing to do, but I was not interested in hearing him out. I just walked away, got into my car, and drove to my parents' house. Once I was there, I explained the entire situation to them, and they told me that if I wanted to file for a divorce, they would arrange for me to speak to a lawyer. It didn't even take me a second to agree. So now my parents are looking for a lawyer while I'm just trying to process everything that's going on. I blocked him as soon as I got home, even though he had texted me a bunch of times saying that he was really sorry that I felt bad, but he just wanted to be there for his friend. The fact that even while apologizing, he was still sticking to his point, it made me even more upset than I already was. Now, given the current scenario, I don't feel bad about anything that I have done because I feel like if anything, I was a lot less petty than I should have been. If I had known that he was staying with his ex, I probably would have gone all out trying to make him feel bad. Anyway, what's done is done. Now I'm just going to speak to a lawyer and try to get this over with. He can go stay with his ex permanently now. I don't care anymore. Update 4. So it's been a couple of weeks since my last update and I filed for divorce, and he responded that he's not contesting the petition, and soon enough we'll be able to finalize the whole thing because he's agreed to my terms. He did send me an email a couple of days ago saying that he was really sorry about how things turned out, but then he felt that I had become very insecure and jealous, and he thinks that this is the best decision for us in the long run since he doesn't think he'll be able to make it work with me if this is the kind of person that I am. It really boiled my blood to read that email because even now he really thinks that whatever he had done, it was completely reasonable. Even his parents feel the same way. That's why they called my parents up and started lecturing them about my behavior, but my parents told them where they could stick their little sermon. Anyway, I've decided to move in with my sister, and in a couple of weeks, I'm even switching jobs since she managed to get me a position in her company. This is going to be a big move, but honestly, I really need this. My friends and parents also think that I need a change of scenery, especially since I really love this man, but he turned out to be a total disappointment. And honestly, I'm actually quite excited about my new life, especially since I'm going to be closer to my sister. I'm hopeful for the future. Now on to the next story. Story 5. I spent a year secretly building my MIL her dream house for her 50th birthday, but she refused to invite us to her birthday because we couldn't buy her an expensive necklace. I want to start this off by saying that my MIL, Judith, F50, is a great woman, and I love her. What has happened is completely out of character for her, which is why I've come to Reddit for advice and to rant. I got married to my husband, Arthur, M31, 3 years ago. It's a very happy, loving, and stable marriage, so I have no complaints there. To make better sense of what happened, it's important to know his past and family. Judith, my MAL, had Arthur very young when she was only 18. Her parents didn't help her out, and she was disowned by her family and ostracized from the community for getting pregnant before marriage. Arthur's biological dad bolted 5 months into the pregnancy, saying that he wasn't ready. So my MIL was all alone. She took the help of some friends, worked odd jobs, and raised Arthur by herself. She's an incredibly strong woman, and I'm in constant awe of her. When Arthur was 5 years old, my MIL got married to Isaac, my husband's stepfather. Arthur considers Isaac to be his father and calls him that. From what I've heard of him, He was a great parent to Arthur and never once made him feel like he wasn't his own. I've only heard heartwarming and positive stories about him, and my husband has great memories of his father. Isaac died when Arthur was 15. It happened suddenly, and neither my ML nor Arthur saw it coming. From what I know, MIL never really recovered from the shock. Moreover, both MIL and Isaac had ordinary jobs, meaning they didn't pay well. They had limited savings, and his death put my MIL in a tough spot. They somehow managed to make their way through the next few years. Then, after school, Arthur got accepted into a Tier 1 college with a 100% scholarship. This made things better for both him and MIL, and it kind of set up his future in a way that he would be able to climb out of the rungs of the lower class and build a better life for himself. Both my MIL and I are insanely proud of Arthur for what he's achieved considering where he came from, and to his credit, he always acknowledges the sacrifice that his mother and father made for his education and that he'd be nowhere without their help. My story is the complete opposite of my husband's. I'm the daughter of first-generation immigrants who are obscenely rich. I come from an opulent and renowned business family, and 4 generations of my family have been in this business back in my home country, which is in Asia. My family is filthy rich and quite well known. My father was sent to the US to expand the business, which he was able to do successfully. My parents' marriage was arranged by my grandparents, and it's been a happy marriage, if I can call it that. Basically, I was born into money. I was made extremely aware that I'd always have a lot of money at my disposal, so I didn't really need to work hard. I was always very free to follow my passions and was given the freedom to choose whatever career I wanted, if any. I've always had an affinity for the arts, so I chose to be a visual artist. It doesn't generate much income, but I have a trust fund, so I'm never strapped for money, and I don't think I ever will be. I don't mean to sound conceited at all, but this is just how it is. Add to this, when I was 19, about 9 years ago, I got a huge amount as a settlement in a discrimination lawsuit. I'm not allowed to divulge details, but I'm a woman of color, and I was treated horribly by someone in a position of power. I decided to take the legal route, and I ended up winning and getting a huge amount. My father helped me get started with all that money. Instead of spending it, we bought 2 properties and put them on rent. So, apart from the money in the trust fund, I also have substantial rental income and other investments. I never need to work a single day in my life, and my money will grow. Since I have the security, I'm able to follow my passions. I'm a painter, and even though it may sound like a silly little hobby, my pieces do sell. I live a good life and I can't complain. I met my husband 5 years ago, and we got married 3 years ago. It's a rock-solid marriage, and I feel lucky to have found someone like him. His mother, my MEL, is a great woman, and she has always treated me with a lot of love and respect. I actually considered myself quite close to her since I never had a very close emotional relationship with my parents. My father was busy looking after the business, and my mother was busy looking after my father. I had all the resources in the world, and they did the best they could for me, but the emotional angle was missing. Arthur and his mom are the complete opposite. They were always strapped for money, but they had so much love for each other. I know a lot of people don't have good relationships with their MILs, but mine has been near perfect, except for this one incident. She doesn't interfere in our lives, is warm and helpful, and I genuinely adore her, which is why her behavior baffled me. 2 years ago, I gave birth to my son, Zane. It was a difficult pregnancy and an even more difficult birth. I won't give you all the gory details, but I lost a lot of blood, and I was on complete bed rest for the next 8 weeks. It was a difficult time for us as a family, and this is when MIL stepped up. She told me not to worry about a single thing and that she would help me and take care of the baby. She was an angel for us, a blessing in disguise. I know that without her, I wouldn't have made it. She moved into our house, took care of Zane and me, and just made everything so easy. Arthur did his part too. I don't mean to imply that he was a deadbeat, but well, he's the father, and that was his duty towards both me and our son. Amael did everything out of the goodness of her heart. We insisted that we would pay her, but she refused. We had been helping her financially otherwise as well, and she said she didn't need anything more from us. For context, Arthur had been sending her money since he got a job and has been covering some of her expenses every month like clockwork. I knew this was important to him, and it was his way of thanking his mother, and I've always respected his sentiment. So, after marriage, both he and I together gave her a sum of money more than what Arthur gave her previously. That allowed her to save up a lot, enjoy her hobbies, and indulge in whatever luxury she wanted. She never asked for a single penny, and both Arthur and I did what we did because we thought it was the right thing to do. In the marriage, even though Arthur is the one who works in the traditional sense, I bring in more money because I'm generationally loaded. Before I married him, some people told me that he was marrying me for the money, but I know my husband enough to vouch for his intentions. He's never treated my money as his, and I have no reason to doubt him. This is also why I felt no qualms at all about spending money on MIL, and once Zane was born and she helped me out so much, there was nothing to be suspicious of anymore. The money continued, and I want to reiterate that she never asked for a single penny. Gradually, however, she started making a few jokes here and there. Things like how she would retire soon because her son had married into money, or that she would soon be one of those rich MILs and maybe even start a TikTok with me. Harmless stuff said in jest, or so I thought. That's how I took it too. I thought she was joking. She always said it humorously and never gave us an inkling that she was angling for more. And to be honest, even if she was, I didn't mind. She's my family. If she needed money, I'd give it to her. If she wanted money, I'd give it to her. She never asked, and she never seemed entitled. It was just a few jokes here and there, and only within close family or amongst us four, so I never thought much of it, and it never raised any eyebrows. Now on to the issue. My MIL turned 50 this year, and Arthur and I wanted to give her a nice gift. My MIL has always lived in rented houses all her life. Arthur and I decided that I had enough money for a significant down payment on a house, and this would be our gift to her. My rental income from my other properties was enough for the mortgage plus some extra, so it wouldn't really dent how we were living right now. Plus, Arthur had been planning on doing this for her when she turned 60. Given my money, we were able to push it back by 10 years, and I was happy to do this for her. I had planned this for her ever since she helped out with Zane. Ever since then, I have tried to get more information on her dream house. What she would want, what she would prefer, and things like that. I always tried to be discreet, and I gradually gathered enough information to get a house built according to her liking. So, we bought the property and gradually modified it over the next few months to suit her needs. For instance, my MIL always wanted to adopt a cat, so we made sure to include a small space for a cat. It wasn't a sprawling space. It was a 2-room unit with ample ventilation and greenery. Not massive, but also not tiny. It was almost 100% equal to what she was looking for. Plus, we had to be very secretive and sneaky with the planning and modifications. This was to be a surprise for her, and we would give her the keys to the apartment on the day of her birthday. It was all planned well in advance, and both Arthur and I were very excited about her reaction. However, what ended up happening was the complete opposite of what we had anticipated. A few weeks before her birthday, we had MIL over for dinner. She was playing with Zane, and we were talking about the latest piece I made. Mid-sentence, she abruptly says that she needs to talk to me. I asked her what was up, and she said she wanted a particular necklace for her birthday, and she wanted to wear it for her party. Now, the necklace in question was quite expensive, and I was a little hesitant because we had already put in so much money for the house. However, I didn't know how to say no, so in the moment, I told her that I'd try to get her that necklace. She was visibly annoyed when I said that, which is quite unlike her. She didn't say much at the time, but I knew she had made a sour face. Things were awkward after that, and she left after a while. Right after she was gone, I told Arthur about what happened. He said I had to outright say no, but would also have to tell her that we had something else for her, and that was why we couldn't get her the necklace. I decided to wait for a few days to see if things got better. If she didn't ask for the necklace again, there was no need for me to text her and remind her that I wouldn't be giving her the gift she wanted. 4 or 5 days after this incident, MIL dropped a text. The text read that she really wanted us to gift her that necklace and that it was the only thing she'd ever demanded from us. I replied that I knew she wanted the necklace, but Arthur and I had already purchased a gift for her, and we were very sorry that we couldn't get her the necklace. We knew she'd love what we had gotten for her, and it was only a matter of a few days until we gave it to her. I tried being as polite as possible in the text because I didn't want her to feel like we didn't want to give her a gift. She didn't respond to the text, and I figured she was upset, so I wanted to give her space. What happened next completely blew my mind. By the next day, she had put up a huge post on Facebook ranting about how she couldn't believe she had an ungrateful child and that there was just one thing she wanted from me, and despite having the money and exploiting her labor all these years, I was still unwilling to give her a tiny gift of her liking. The post was a complete slander of me and my character, even going so far as to call me a rich, snobby, and snooty stuck-up. I'm not on Facebook, so I only found out about the post after almost every family member had seen it. One of Arthur's cousins sent the link to us, and I was appalled at all the hateful things she was writing. It was just so out of character for her, and she had completely maligned my image in front of the entire family. Although it was both Arthur and I who had told her that we wouldn't be able to give her the gift she wanted, she only targeted me in her post, going as far as to say that Arthur was under my influence and I controlled him with my money. It was a show through and through, and I felt so bad that she would think, let alone write all this about me. I was crying, and Arthur tried his best to comfort me, but I was inconsolable. He said he'd talk to her and request she take the post down if that made me feel better. He called her up and asked her to take the post down, and that just because we weren't giving her the necklace she wanted didn't mean we weren't giving her anything at all. She doubled down on what she was saying and was even more hurtful and bitter on the call. It felt like talking to a poisonous snake, and no matter what Arthur said, she wouldn't listen. She also said she wouldn't take down the Facebook post and that she didn't want to associate with a hateful woman like me ever again. She said she'd never be running any errands for us or helping us out with anything. All in all, it was a totally unproductive call that not only made things worse but also got me uninvited from her birthday party. Arthur realized that there was no point in talking to her anymore and disconnected the call. I was miserable for the next couple of days, and Arthur tried his best to be there for me. He was furious at his mother and refused to pick up her calls. Whenever I asked him what we were going to do, he said I should leave everything to him and not worry about what was going to happen. Her birthday and things came to a boiling point. Arthur went to the birthday party with no gift in hand. Mal was cordial with him from what he said, but there was still a lot of tension in the air. Many of her friends and family were present, so Arthur just mingled with other people. Most, however, steered clear of him because I'm guessing all of them had read the Facebook post. Now, at the end of the party, Mal had planned to open her gifts. Before she could get on with that, Arthur got up and said that he had something for her. He said he was very thankful that he had a mother like her and that he was who he was largely because of the efforts and sacrifices she'd made throughout his childhood. He said he'd always tried his best to be a good son, so much so that he'd been sending her monthly payments ever since he got a job. He told me before going to the party that he'd be saying this, and I'd begged him not to cause chaos, but he was insistent, saying that if Mal put up her side of the story, he had every right to clarify his side. Once he said the part about regular monthly payments, Mal got visibly uncomfortable, and there were a lot of long looks and glances around the table. He went on to say that he was so sorry for his mother's stupidity, because little did she know that he and I had bought a house for her that we had been working on for almost a year to turn her into a homeowner and allow her to retire early. He had made a PowerPoint of the entire house with the rooms, the yard, and everything, and showed it to everyone at the party on the screen. He said he couldn't believe that Mal was willing to let it all go for a necklace despite him and me repeatedly telling her that we had something planned for her. He said he was sorry we didn't get her the necklace and he decided to sell the house, buy the necklace she wanted, and keep the rest of the money. By the end of his long speech, Mal was in tears, and everyone else was disapproving of what she'd done. He then excused himself and doesn't know what happened afterward, but he feels much better after calling Mal out for what she did. I don't know where I stand with all this because I'm generally not a very confrontational person, and I do feel bad for her, but I also think she went a little too far with the Facebook post. A cousin of his has been trying to get in touch with me, but I haven't returned her calls yet. I don't know what we're going to do, but I just want the drama to be over. Update 1. I have a small update, even though it's relatively minor and not nearly as dramatic as Reddit would want. Arthur and I decided that we're going to put the house up for rent. It's a beautiful property. The interiors are new, and we were very meticulous in ensuring there should be no hurdles for ML. I genuinely feel this house has the potential to fetch us a great sum and be a source of regular income for us. We listed the flat 2 days ago, and we already have some queries. We'll be taking our time in deciding who to rent it to because we want decent tenants who will be trouble-free. My ML hasn't reached out to us yet, and I don't think she will. The public humiliation and embarrassment she's faced will stick with her for a long time. I had told Arthur to go soft on her, maybe tell her in private, but he was furious with her because of how she treated me. He said that she chose to make everything public and slander me on social media, so he was going to make everything public too. He even said she should be grateful he did it in front of friends and not on social media for the entire world to see. Some of his cousins have reached out. One section of them has called us out for ruining a milestone birthday and creating a spectacle of it all. Another section, on the other hand, supports us and says that she should have known what she's lost in her greed and pettiness. I don't really pay much heed to these messages because, frankly, I don't have the energy for this drama that's erupted into a volcano for no reason at all. I just want to stay away from it all, but I know that's not a possibility. My MIL is going to get in touch with us someday. I just hope it's not for a long time. We can't keep her out of Zane's life. She's been a good grandmother to him and has been there for him ever since he was born. So this stalemate has to end one day. I just hope and pray I get some peace and quiet before I'm ready to deal with all of this again. Update 2. I read all of your comments, and they've been very helpful. I've always been a non-confrontational person, and I've never liked fighting or not being in contact with people I'm close to. Reddit made me realize that what Arthur did was the right thing, even though it ruined my MIL's birthday. We've gone above and beyond to ensure she lives a good and comfortable life, even though we, especially I, don't owe her that. I bought that house for her out of the goodness of my heart and because of the bond we shared, but she completely sullied it because she couldn't take no for an answer. I also realized that this has been the only time she's asked for something that hasn't been given to her. She's never had to ask us for anything. We do it ourselves before the chance even arises for her to ask. Whether she feels entitled to getting everything she wants, I don't know. But her reaction to a polite no was unexpected and can't be overlooked any longer. This brings me to the actual update. The house has been rented out. We gave it to a newly retired couple and their 2 pets, 1 dog and 1 cat. They seemed very pleasant, and both Arthur and I have a good feeling about them. The lease has been signed, and they'll be moving in very soon. I'm glad they have pets because we made tiny areas in the apartment, keeping my MIL's wish of adopting a cat in mind. Thankfully, all that effort won't go to waste. While this was happening on one hand, there's been a dramatic turn of events on the other. MIL reached out to us. By us, I mean Arthur, at least she started that way. In the initial few messages, she acted as if nothing was wrong at all. She wanted to brush everything under the rug and pretend there had been no fight whatsoever, but Arthur wasn't having it. He was very cold and curt in his replies, and I think she understood that there was no wriggling her way out of this one. She then finally asked him to come over with me so we could talk it out. Arthur said he'd talk to me and let her know. I told him I wasn't comfortable meeting her at her house, so if we met, it would either be at our place or in a public place. Secondly, I didn't want Zane around when she came because there was a chance the meeting could turn ugly, and no matter what, I didn't want Zane to witness any of this. He had no business seeing his parents and grandmother fight each other. Arthur thought a public place might be too noisy for a meeting and that none of us would be able to express ourselves properly there, so ultimately we decided we would meet her at our place. When the same was relayed to her, she was adamant at first but ultimately gave in because we gave her no room for negotiation. She came over and initially it was very awkward. Then, instead of apologizing for her behavior or at least acknowledging her role in the entire chaos she caused, she had the audacity to ask me for the keys to the house. That's when I knew that all of you were correct and she was greedy from the inside. I couldn't help but laugh in her face when she said that. She turned red with embarrassment. I tried to remain as dignified as possible and said that we had unfortunately rented the property out to someone, but we'd be giving her the necklace as requested. She looked at Arthur as if waiting for him to call out my bluff, but he just shrugged. That's when she started saying we couldn't do this to her and the house was hers because we had bought it for her birthday, and that she was being gracious by still accepting the offer considering we ruined her 50th birthday. I didn't know what to say to that, and neither did Arthur because the next thing I know, he was ushering her out of the house. She refused to go and started screaming at him, saying that I had him completely under my spell and that I was a witch who'd taken her baby boy away from her. It was so cringe, it made me barf if I'm being honest. I didn't even try to stop Arthur or get in between them. I just told her that I believed she'd overstay her welcome and that her pretty necklace would be delivered to her as promised. As for Zane, she's free to meet him whenever she wants, but it will always be supervised. I will not be letting my son meet her unsupervised. She's a viper, and if she can try to poison my husband against me, who's to say she won't do it with my son? She ran away in tears after that, and I think both Arthur and I are blocked, so I don't think she's interested in meeting Zane anymore. The option is always open to her if she wants, but I'm done being the bigger person. Update 3. Hi everyone. I had logged off Reddit and forgotten about the account, so I'm sorry about that. The necklace was delivered to MIL as promised. What she's done with it, I don't know. The monthly payments to her continue like before because, whether we like it or not, she did raise my husband and did it really well and helped me when I needed her. She's asked to see Zane a couple of times, but we're still firm on the part where we won't be letting her meet him unsupervised. She's unwilling to accept that condition, and if that's her hill to die on, so be it. I'm done helping her or trying to make excuses for her behavior. She dug this grave for herself, and if she can't put her ego aside to make amends with her only family, she's the one who's going to lose out. There will be no more updates because there's nothing else to share. I came here to rant, and I sincerely hope I don't have to go through something like this in my life ever again. Now on to the next story. Story 6. Overshadowed by my parents' favoritism toward my twin, I reached out to my uncle, who encouraged me by gifting me a car. I 23F. Need to get this off my chest. I've been holding this in for so long, trying to tell myself that things will eventually change, but recent events have shown me that I can't keep pretending any longer. This is about my twin sister, Emma, 23F, and how our parents, Linda, 48F, and Robert, 50M, treated us differently throughout our lives, including our professional jobs at one of New York's major corporations. Growing up in our suburban home wasn't too bad, assuming you didn't mind being continually overshadowed. Mom is a real estate salesperson who lives for open houses and client lunches, someone who views every social contact as a potential sale. Dad owns his own accounting firm, and they're all about upholding the perfect image. A spotless home, manicured lawn, country club membership, and private school tuition. However, that meticulously produced image functioned best when Emma was the focal point. I first noticed the trend around the age of 6. It wasn't evident at first, more like puzzle pieces that only made sense years later. When we went shopping for school supplies, Emma got the trendy backpacks and elegant pencil cases, while I got the practical, robust ones, because they'll last longer. Emma's birthday parties were elaborately themed affairs with professional entertainment and personalized cakes. My family gatherings were simple, since you prefer quiet celebrations. Don't you, sweetie? The holidays were when the disparity became painfully obvious. Every Christmas morning, Emma would open the latest must-have toys, the costly dolls, the newest gaming systems, and everything she'd circled in the holiday catalogs. I'd get educational toys or practical gifts like clothes, because you're the responsible one. I have a vivid memory of one Christmas. Emma purchased a large dollhouse that cost more than most individuals spend on their entire holiday shopping. I was given a collection of science encyclopedias, because they'll help with your studies. When I expressed interest in the dollhouse, Mom swiftly remarked, "Let Emma enjoy her special gift. You have books to read." Elementary school presented its own issues. Emma struggled with reading from an early age, so our parents hired several tutors and spent hours helping her practice. When I needed help with math, Mom would tell me to try harder. Emma joined every after-school activity she desired, including dance, gymnastics, and cheerleading. When I begged to join the science club, Dad answered, "Maybe next semester when we have more budget." But that semester never came. By middle school, I had learned to value my intellectual abilities. I pushed myself into my studies, obtaining consecutive A's and plaudits from teachers. However, this created another cause of tension. Emma had a meltdown after I won the school science fair in 7th grade because she wasn't getting any attention. At the family supper that night, instead of celebrating my accomplishment, Mom spent the evening soothing Emma, telling her, "Everyone has different talents." Dad just sat there, occasionally staring at me with discomfort rather than pride. The tendency became more pronounced during high school. I completed all advanced placement classes, joined academic clubs, and tutored other kids. Emma, on the other hand, prioritized popularity and social activities, achieving just passing marks while excelling at making social connections. During the college application season, I spent numerous hours improving my essays and applying for scholarships. Emma applied to 3 institutions, each with relatively simple admission standards. However, Emma's admittance into our state university's business school piqued our parents' interest more than my acceptance to many top-tier universities with hefty scholarships. When we both got employment at Stellaris Corporation after graduation, I figured things would finally change. I was accepted into their extremely competitive management training program after completing 6 rounds of interviews and tests. Emma was hired in sales after meeting the department head at one of Mom's real estate networking events. You'd think that working in the corporate world would level the playing field, yet our family dynamics followed us like a shadow. In my 9 months at Stellaris, I have routinely exceeded my analytics targets. I created a new reporting system that saved the organization more than $200,000 in the first quarter alone. My team leader has already suggested me for an early promotion. Emma, on the other hand, is well known for planning office social events and nurturing client ties. She hasn't fulfilled her sales targets yet, but she reminds our parents that building relationships takes time. Mom and Dad's reactions to our various job paths have been predictably biased. When Emma organizes a successful client lunch, Mom posts about it on all social media platforms with headlines such as, "So proud of my baby girl making waves in the corporate world." When I earned an excellence award for my cost-saving ideas, Mom texted me a quick, "That's nice, honey," followed by 5 texts about assisting Emma with an impending client presentation. The office dynamic itself frequently feels like a rerun of our childhood. Emma's workstation is on the 15th floor in the sales department, where she deals with a steady stream of visitors. My workstation is on the 12th level of analytics, where I spend the majority of my time working with data and creating reports. Emma is frequently the center of attention at business events, while I stay in the background, focusing on keeping our projects on track. Last month, I believe things might finally change. Our department bosses announced that they were choosing team members for a distinguished 2-week training session in our Singapore office. Both Emma and I were nominated as candidates. For 3 weeks straight, I worked late at the office, methodically preparing my presentation and project proposal. I examined previous successful applicants, studied the Singapore office's activities, and produced detailed proposals for possible cross-market projects. Emma, in her own style, concentrated on networking. She spent the same 3 weeks treating key decision-makers to lunch and organizing after-work social activities. I overheard her say to someone, "Why worry about presentations when you can build connections?" It was such a typical Emma attitude that I almost had to chuckle. Last Tuesday, we gave our last presentations for the Singapore program. The selection committee included senior executives from both administrations. I presented a full analysis and cross-market approach, including expected outcomes and execution deadlines. Emma pursued me, presenting what she called a people-first approach to international collaboration, which centered on team building and social activities. I felt confident in my chances. My presentation was robust, supported by statistics and concrete strategies. But deep down, I had a nagging suspicion that something would go wrong, as it often does when Emma and I compete for the same thing. The findings were released Tuesday morning. Our department had summoned us both to the conference room. Emma was selected for the Singapore program. The reason? Her natural ability to build relationships would be beneficial to international cooperation. I sat there attempting to keep a professional demeanor as my gut twisted into knots. The saddest thing wasn't missing the opportunity. It was seeing Emma's perfected expression of phony modesty when she accepted the post. But that wasn't the actual blow to the gut. During my lunch break, I overheard Emma on the phone with Mom. "Yes, it is for 2 weeks. No, I will not be alone." "Really? Would you and Dad do that?" "That'd be wonderful." My heart plummeted before I really realized what was coming. Later that evening, during our monthly family meal, which Mom insists on keeping even though we're grown-ups, they dropped the bomb. Emma was not only going to Singapore, but her parents had decided to make it a family vacation. They'd purchased tickets to follow her, intending to support her throughout this significant career milestone before spending an additional week traveling Southeast Asia together. I sat there pushing my food around on my plate, waiting for them to reveal my participation in these schemes. Instead, Mom turned to me and said, "Won't you take care of the house while we're away? Honey, make sure you water my plants. The expensive ones in the sunroom require special attention." Emma couldn't help but add her own spin. "Don't worry, sister. I'll send you plenty of photos. You can live vicariously via me." She chuckled as if it were a joke we were both in on. Dad merely kept eating and avoided eye contact, as he normally does in these situations. I excused myself from dinner early, claiming I had work to complete. As I drove home to my apartment, memories came flooding back. All the times I'd been excluded, disregarded, or dismissed. Emma had dance recitals, therefore they were unable to attend the science fair victories. Emma needed assistance with her college applications, so they scarcely ignored the scholarship announcements. The constant barrage of not nows and maybe laters that defined my childhood. Emma was already telling everyone at work this morning about her great news. "It's going to be such an amazing family experience," she kept saying, apparently unaware of or purposefully ignoring the fact that not all of her family was present. I buried myself into my work, ignoring the congratulatory messages in Emma's inbox and the constant stream of coworkers who stopped by her desk. Our team leader sensed something was wrong and inquired whether I was all right. I flashed her my best professional smile and claimed I was all right, just thinking about our forthcoming project deadlines. During the afternoon meeting, Emma couldn't stop talking about her trip to Singapore. "I'm so grateful for this opportunity," she added, gazing right at me. "It's important to have family support during big career moments." The irony in her comment made me want to scream. Now I'm sitting here watching my sister and Dad plan their thrilling Asian excursion while I'm supposed to stay behind and water the plants. The familiar sensation of being a family afterthought is devastating. But what hurts the most is understanding that nothing has changed. I'm still the little girl who got encyclopedias for Christmas while her sister got a playhouse. I have not informed anyone at work how I truly feel. What do I even say? My twin sister gets everything handed to her, while I work twice as hard for half the recognition? Sounds petty, but it's the fact I've known my entire life. Mom sent a group text tonight about a meeting this weekend to help Emma purchase acceptable work clothes in Singapore. I have not responded. I'm sick of playing my allocated role in the family performance. The dependable but forgettable supporting character in the Emma show. I don't know what to do now. Part of me wants to finally speak up and demand an explanation for years of being treated as an afterthought. But part of me knows it won't make a difference. They'll just call me theatrical or envious, like they always do when I try to confront inequality. So here I am, reaching out to strangers on the internet because I don't know anyone else to talk to. Is it crazy to feel like this? Am I overreacting to what they would presumably describe as just a family vacation? I've spent my entire life trying to prove my worth to people who refuse to recognize it, and I'm beginning to wonder whether I should give up. Update 1. Following my previous post, something unexpected occurred that dramatically altered things. I need to post this since I'm still trying to digest everything. The morning my family went to Singapore feels like it happened in a different lifetime. I felt like a ghost among my own family members as I watched them put their identical fancy baggage into Mom's Mercedes. Mom was worrying about Emma's carry-on luggage, Dad was checking their passports, and Emma was taking selfies for her Instagram story, which she had previously hashtagged with #AmazingFamilyAdventure. Mom turned to me just before they left, using her dismissive tone. "Remember to check the mail every day and water the plants. The orchids in the sunroom require extra maintenance." I have left instructions on the kitchen counter. We will be back in 3 weeks. That was it. No goodbye hugs. No, we'll miss you. Just a list of duties. After they drove away, I sat in their empty house, surrounded by all of the exquisite furnishings in their immaculate rooms, and feeling absolutely lost. Looking at the family portraits on the walls, most of which depict Emma's accomplishments, brought back memories. Years ago, I overheard Mom's furious phone discussion with her brother, Uncle Jack. She was telling him he was an embarrassment and should avoid her perfect family. Jack was never mentioned except as a hazy cautionary tale about poor life choices. But sitting in that empty house, something clicked. Perhaps someone who has been kicked out of the perfect family can understand how it feels to never quite fit in. I got his address after a fast online search. He lived just a few miles away in a small area across town. His house was small but well kept, with a somewhat overgrown garden that seemed more alive than our pristine lawn ever did. An old motorcycle was sitting in the driveway. When he opened the door, I froze. He didn't resemble Mom's side of the family. He had kind eyes and laugh wrinkles around his mouth, and he was dressed in well-worn trousers and a faded band t-shirt. "Could I help you?" he inquired, seeming perplexed. "I'm Natalie," I managed to say. "Linda's daughter." His eyes widened with recognition before softening with understanding. "Well, I'll be damned," he muttered, shaking his head with a faint smile. "Little Natalie, the last time I saw you, you were barely walking. You resemble your granny." She was also the quiet rebel in the family. His home was messy yet comfortable, stocked with books and classic vehicle models. Everything came spilling out over coffee and mismatched mugs. Years of being second best, endless comparisons to Emma, the Singapore trip, and everything else. He listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding as if not shocked. "Your mother," he finally concluded, "has always cared about appearances. When we were kids, she was the ideal daughter, while I was the family disappointment since I opted to be a mechanic instead of attending college." Sounds familiar. We spoke for hours. He told me about growing up with Mom, how she was always obsessed with creating the perfect image, and how she shut him out totally when he refused to give up his embarrassing vocation and pursue a career in finance as she preferred. "But you know what?" He showed me pictures of his auto shops. "Being excluded from her idea of perfection was the nicest thing that ever happened to me. I got to live my life on my own terms, start my business from scratch, and marry someone I love rather than someone who looked nice on paper." Before I left that first day, he inquired about my plans, employment, and dreams. Nobody in my family had ever expressed such real interest in my life. When I told him about my analytics work, he understood and appeared genuinely impressed with my accomplishments. Jack called a few days later and invited me to his house. When I arrived, he was standing in his driveway alongside a brand new BMW 3 Series. My heart almost stopped when he held up the keys and said, "It's yours." I looked at him as if he had lost his wits. "What? No, I cannot. This is too much. The car must have cost more than I earned in a year." But he simply smiled and placed the keys into my hand. "You earned it," he replied simply. "Someone needs to show you that your accomplishments are important. Consider it a graduation present. Late but better than never. I've done well for myself over the years, and I currently operate 3 successful car shops. Let me do this for my niece who has finally stood up for herself." The automobile was stunning. Sleek black with leather seats and all the newest technology. As I sat in the driver's seat, stunned, Jack leaned against the door. "Drive it to work. Leave it where they can see it when they return." Sometimes the greatest way to respond to being excluded is to demonstrate that you no longer need their approval. Each time I drove it to work, I felt a little stronger and more confident. My colleagues sensed a shift in me. "There's something different about you," my team leader said. "You seem more assured." For once, I did not downplay my accomplishments. "It was a gift from my uncle," I explained proudly. "He believes in celebrating achievements." Today, I received another SMS from Emma. "Singapore is incredible. Mom and Dad are bringing me shopping in all of the designer stores. Send pictures so you don't feel left out. A year ago, such photos would have crushed me. Today, I grinned while looking at my new car keys. For once, I didn't feel excluded at all. But of course, this moment of calm could not endure. Mom called earlier. Apparently, one of her real estate clients noticed me visiting Jack. "What were you thinking?" she demanded, her voice tensed with rage. "He's not a member of this family anymore. Do you have any notion how it appears when you visit him? Stay away from him." When I didn't instantly agree, she said, "We'll talk about it properly when we get back tomorrow. They'll return from their trip tomorrow. I've parked the BMW in our driveway so they can't miss it. I know there will be drama. Mom will be outraged about Jack, and Emma will undoubtedly be upset about not receiving an expensive gift herself. But for once, I don't care how they react." Jack made me realize something vital. I've worked my entire life to earn a spot in their ideal family photo. Perhaps it's time to start taking my own images. Update 2. Everything burst just as I predicted, but not in the way I had hoped. A lot has transpired since my last update, and I need to explain how everything has altered. When my family returned from Singapore, I was sitting on Jack's porch when my phone began to buzz with texts. Emma had arrived home first and noticed the BMW in the driveway. "What the hell, Natalie? Where did you get the car?" This was followed by a series of progressively irate text messages. I drove home to confront them, feeling surprisingly calm. When I arrived, they were all standing in the driveway. Mom looking as if she had swallowed something unpleasant, Dad avoiding eye contact as usual, and Emma with her arms crossed, still dressed in her Singapore airport attire. "Who bought your car?" Mom demanded before I even stepped out. When I informed her it was from Uncle Jack, her face flushed an unusual shade of red. "Jack? That lowlife mechanic who couldn't even complete college? Return it immediately," Mom snapped. "No," I said, surprised by how calm my voice was. "I am not returning anything. Uncle Jack bought me this car because he is pleased with my accomplishments, which you would not comprehend." Emma stepped forward, hand out. "Please, Nat, don't be selfish. I know I'll look better driving it. I work in sales, and appearance is important in my position." I laughed. I laughed. "Unbelievable. You just returned from a luxury trip that I was not invited to, and now you want my car." Mom's expression tightened. "If you don't hand over those keys right now, you can find somewhere else to live." "Funny you should say that," I said, walking to my car and opening the trunk to display my packed baggage. I was planning on leaving anyway. The expression on their faces was priceless. Mom's mouth expanded and closed like a fish out of water. Emma simply gazed, her perfect Instagram pose finally shattering. Dad shuffled uneasily, but as always, said nothing. "Don't worry," I murmured, getting back into the car. "I will send you photos. You can live vicariously via me for once." I drove directly to Jack's residence. He had already arranged the guest room, as if he knew exactly how things would play out. "Stay for as long as you need," he offered, helping me with my things. It's about time someone in this family stood up to Linda. The following few days were bizarre. I began preparing for my new life by transferring to a different department at work, one that had been attempting to attract me for months, and looking for my own apartment. But Emma couldn't let me enjoy a moment of peace. She began posting on social media about toxic family members and ungrateful sisters. The posts were always carefully phrased to make her appear as the victim while portraying me as the villain. "Some people can't handle others' success and lash out instead," she said beside a photo of my vacant childhood room. "Sad when jealousy ruins relationships." Our mutual high school acquaintances began to contact us, asking what was wrong with me and why I was causing problems with my family. Emma had always been the social media queen, meticulously constructing her image as the ideal daughter, and she was now utilizing the platform to dictate the narrative. But something unexpected occurred. My coworkers, who had seen me work twice as hard for half the accolades, began protecting me. My team leader celebrated genuine achievements by posting a photo of our department's success metrics, which I had helped enhance. Other coworkers told stories about my efforts to the organization. Then last Friday, Mom arrived at my new office. She strode in as if she owned the place, swinging her luxury bags. "This has gone on long enough," she declared. "You have to come home and fix this. People are talking." I looked up from my computer, observing how quiet my coworkers had become while watching the scene unfold. "Good," I said calmly. "Let them chat. Maybe they'll finally understand what's been going on all these years." "You've changed," she replied, her tone stern. "And not for the best. This is not you, Natalie. This disobedience, this attention-seeking behavior, it's beneath you." "No, Mom," I responded, rising up. "This is who I am. You just didn't notice because you were too busy making sure Emma was in the spotlight." She attempted a different strategy, lowering her voice. "How about family loyalty? What would others think if they saw you living with Jack and driving his car? He's no longer really a member of our family." "That's where you're incorrect," I answered. "Jack has been more family to me in the last few weeks than you have in my entire life. He actually sees me, Mom, not just Emma's shadow." "He's using you to get back at me," she said. "You're just too naive to see it." I shook my head. "No, Mom. For the first time in my life, I can see everything clearly. You can leave now. I have work to do." She stayed there for a bit, evidently looking for anything else to say, and then turned and walked away without saying anything else. Later that day, Jack called to tell me something fascinating. "Your mom showed up at my shop," he added, laughing. "She wanted to talk about my will. I think she's concerned that I'm leaving everything to you. Linda is always thinking about what's in it for her." "What have you told her?" I asked. "I told her not to worry about it," he added. "But honestly, Natalie, her coming here isn't for the money. It's all about control. She's terrified of what I might reveal about the past." When I questioned what he meant, he paused. "Let's not open that can of worms just yet. Focus on your future, youngster. You've got bigger things to worry about." And he's correct. I'm settling into my new life now, and my work is going great. It turns out that when you're not constantly trying to prove your worth to people who never acknowledge it, you have a lot more energy to actually do your job. I'll be looking at apartments next week, and I'm even thinking about going back to school for my MBA. Emma continues to post her passive-aggressive updates, but they no longer hurt. Mom continues to try to get me to see reason, and Dad continues to avoid conflict by saying nothing at all. But for the first time in my life, I feel free. Free from constant comparison, free from the never-ending need to earn their approval, and free from living in Emma's shadow. Sometimes I look at old family photos and feel a twinge of sadness for that little girl who worked so hard to be seen. But then I look at my life now, my career that's finally taking off, my supportive uncle who celebrates my accomplishments, my new friends who value me for who I am, and I realize that little girl finally got what she always wanted. Her approval, rather than her family's, was preferable. I'm not sure what the future contains, but for the first time, I'm looking forward to finding out. After all, some family stories must finish in order for new ones to begin. Now on to the next story. Story 7. My parents skipped my wedding for my brother. Now their world is falling apart as the truth unravels. My parents put my brother first once more, and now their world is falling apart. So, I only disclosed my wedding after it had already taken place. Mike, 21M, is the younger brother of me, 27F. He is the epitome of a mama's boy and a man-child, always whining and demanding respect from others. My parents have worried about him ever since he was born. He did not have a difficult birth and does not have special needs. My parents totally abandoned me when he was just born. In particular, my mother, 50M, changed from being a devoted mother to one of those boy moms that people make fun of online. Even though my father, 50M, still loved and supported me, he has always been too cowardly to challenge my mother and let me win, not even once. Only my 76-year-old grandfather defended me. He never liked my siblings and often criticized my parents for their actions. He claims that we have a really particular link, and that I make him think of his late wife, my grandma. I don't get to see him very frequently because he lives on the opposite side of the nation. Mike enjoys making fun of me since he knows our mother likes him. We've always been at odds because of this and his general conduct. He's a brat, pampered, and a terrible person. I can't even remember how many times I've been in trouble for stuff he framed me for or for performing things better than him. He received a scholarship to a prestigious out-of-state institution because football is his only talent. My parents said my college fund had been spent to pay for bills following a fire, so they didn't spend a single penny on my schooling. I found out years later that Mike had really received money to purchase a house and a car. Lucas and I met at my public university. There, he was the first person with whom I really clicked. I met new friends, of course, and they are now my closest pals. I was able to leave my parents' place because of them and Lucas, who had been my best friend for years before we started dating. Lucas and I are now both highly respected in our professions and make excellent money. The principal problem. A year ago, Lucas asked me to marry him. We didn't make a big deal out of it or broadcast it on social media since we're pretty private. My folks simply said, "That's nice," when I informed them, and I'm beginning to believe they didn't even hear me. With our closest friends and family, we chose a modest yet elegant ceremony and reception. Lucas persuaded me to extend an invitation to my brother and parents, but they never did. Every time I went to visit, my mother would interrupt me and begin discussing my brother's achievements and exploits. Without indicating that it was a wedding, I'd had enough at one point. I cut her off and explained that I had an event scheduled for a certain day that couldn't be changed. She informed me that they were unable to go since they had to be there for my brother's final game of the season. Naturally, I was not surprised by this obvious preference. For identical reasons, they had missed my high school and university graduations, as well as my ballet recital. I chose to be petty at that moment. I didn't press my parents to attend the event. After telling them it was okay for them to do so, I purposely omitted the fact that this event was actually my wedding. Advanced flash. I got married a couple of weeks ago. It was ideal. We had a great time with my family, Lucas's family, and our friends present. Everything went perfectly, and my grandpa was overjoyed to give me away. When several of my relatives questioned me about why my parents weren't present, I answered honestly that they couldn't since they had to go to my brother's game. Nothing out of the ordinary happened, though I did get a few glares for it, and my grandfather was noticeably upset for a bit. Lucas and I left for our honeymoon after the celebration, and we didn't use our phones at all. But upon our return, we encountered a storm, both real and imagined. My phone was flooded with alerts when I turned it back on. The majority came from my brother and mother because one of my paternal aunts had shared wedding pictures on Facebook with a barely veiled jab at my parents, particularly my mother, for missing the wedding. Mike called me a variety of derogatory things. My parents received criticism from the public for their treatment of me when the post went viral in their neighborhood. As it happens, my grandfather came to visit my parents in person to deliver a harsh lecture, humiliating my father, his son, to the point of tears. This appeared to be the tipping moment for my father. He eventually rebelled against my mom, threatening to file for divorce unless she made amends because he was so upset about missing his only daughter's wedding and getting his father's displeasure. My mom has been bombarding my phone with messages, and it looks like this is the reason. The letters began as threats and insults but soon evolved into pleading for forgiveness and throwing sympathy parties. Right now, my spouse and I are at home debating how to respond to the circumstance. Many of my family members have apologized for what I went through, including those I didn't invite to the wedding. They say they were unaware that this was taking place at home since most of them reside in separate states or on the opposite side of the nation from my grandfather. I can't hold them responsible. My mom's sisters and friends, however, have been making fun of me for not telling her about the wedding directly. They maintain that she is upset over missing it. I'm not positive, but I believe she's just trying to save face. My parents' most recent communications appear to be quite sad and regretful that they were unable to attend my wedding. My family is now split into 3 groups. The majority who support me, my maternal aunts who shame me for allegedly offending my mother, and my maternal grandparents who demand that I pardon my mother because she has made an effort to make amends. My closest pals are telling me not to pay attention to them. Edit. Answering frequently asked questions. Did I tell my parents I was getting married? Indeed, I did. All of my guests received conventional paper invitations, and I was informed that they had all arrived. Mike, my parents, some distant relatives, and some Lucas family members didn't reply. I sent follow-up mails to verify that I was there. Those who did not respond informed me that they were unable to attend. I texted my brother and mom to ask, but they ignored me. I didn't bother pressing further because I was aware of their past and had everything planned. Why didn't I reschedule the wedding? I was dismissed each time I pushed on emphasizing my celebrations to get an answer. Because I had already been informed that there was my brother's game, it seemed that some things were just more essential than me. Therefore, I was frequently told it wasn't important and to quit being pissy and bothersome. It wasn't worth the effort, so I think it's fair that I quit pressing at this point to see if my parents would even be interested. I refrained from informing them outright that I was getting married. Naturally, they didn't. I talked candidly about my wedding with my aunts and uncles. In spite of this, several times when I spoke with my aunt about venues or clothing stores, my mother was in the room. She was talking to people or on the phone at different moments. She was never attentive. She would smile, say, "That's great, dear," and then move on whenever I brought it up. During reunions, Dad and Mike were silent on the radio. I had previously experienced harassment whenever I attempted to go no contact and see. They never went to my high school, bachelor's, or master's graduations because of things involving my brother, and I was humiliated for having the audacity to abandon my family. This was passed down from my maternal aunts and grandparents, in addition to my parents and brother. Lucas was the pivotal moment. Shortly after my previous attempt at going NC, we began dating, and with his encouragement, I now feel more secure in my position. I wasn't as confident in myself before then. I attempted to inform my paternal family about my parents' treatment when I was 14 years old. My parents pretended to be apologetic while my aunts, uncles, and grandfather chastised them. After we arrived home, I was subjected to lifelong gaslighting and beatings for lying. I continued to communicate with my paternal side, but out of fear, kept the abuse a secret. My grandpa was the only one who knew, but he was constantly warned that if he attempted to step in, he would lose my favor. My parents don't know my new address, and I reside an hour away from their little town. This is deliberate. My mother supported my brother's attempt to break into my former apartment to steal money, saying, "Siblings share their goods." I've since relocated, and I'll make sure they never find out where I live. My college funds were not immediately spent by my parents. After lying about needing it for costs, they used it to purchase a house close to my brother's college when he started his freshman year and a car for his 16th birthday. Until it met their needs, they did not touch the fund. I want to start by saying thank you to everyone who read my story and wished my husband and I luck. I am so appreciative of your encouraging words, affection, and criticism. The response has exceeded my expectations by a wide margin. To people who think my tale isn't true, I'm glad your family life is better than mine, even if you consider my reality to be a fantasy. But I would really appreciate it if you would quit teasing me and demanding me to say that I'm fabricating a tale to get attention. If I missed anything in the first post, it was because I was so distraught and crying over the abuse I was experiencing from my family. Keeping a modicum of civility would be appreciated, but you are not obligated to read or believe my narrative. It was obvious from the invitation that it was a wedding. There are no justifications for ignorance. The wedding was not attended by my maternal side of the family. While some sent gifts but chose not to attend, the majority were busy. I'm not sure why they didn't talk to my mother about my wedding. I'm not like I live in their heads. My mother essentially apologized by SMS as part of her purported atonement. This past week has been a little chaotic. I took a few days off from Reddit to collect my thoughts. After that, Lucas and I talked for a long time about what to do. I don't think I could ever love him more than I do now since he has been my rock. Although talking about my parents was never acceptable to me, Lucas gave me a harsh reality check that I really needed. We came to the conclusion that it wasn't healthy for me to stay in touch, stick around, and not go no contact and see. I came to the realization that I never really went and see because deep down, I still needed their approval. I know it's pathetic, but it's like a drug. My parents can be warm, hilarious, loving, and caring when we're together, until they're not. You want their praise so badly that you ruin yourself because of the little affection they offer you, which makes you need more. However, that is sufficient. I made a self-promise that things would change. After giving it some thought, I made the decision to go and see with everyone who made a fuss out of this situation and to begin therapy for good this time. I messaged my father after thinking about it for days, telling him that I would meet him, Mom, and Mike somewhere neutral if he wanted to chat. He agreed right away. We met at the park the following day. We were joined in repairing the damage by my father's siblings and sisters. It appeared as though my father had been crying for some time. My mother appeared the same, but it appeared to be more embarrassed and angry. My sibling appeared irritated. I explained to them how I had always been harmed by their acts and preference for my brother, and how their abusive behavior had led me to conclude that I did not want to speak to any of them ever again. My mother made several attempts to interrupt me during the meeting, but my aunt, who made the Facebook post, always stopped her. They had no genuine response when I questioned why they were treating me in this manner. My uncle chastised my dad for constantly sobbing and apologizing without providing an explanation. My mother finally acknowledged, "I just didn't like you," as though she were asking herself that question for the first time. Simple enough. My brother, he acknowledged that it was like a sport to him to get attention and make me miserable. I asked more questions. They said they never received my invitation when I questioned why they never replied. They denied ever seeing the texts when I presented them. As it happens, they were speaking the truth. My folks weren't home when they received the wedding invitation. When my brother saw the invitation, he tore it up and threw it away when he was there for the weekend. My parents erased my texts after I sent them. He said it was simple because he had archived my chat so they wouldn't receive any notices. I was upset. I had to stop Lucas from striking Mike in the face. When I asked him why he would do such a thing, he shrugged and said it wasn't as important as the stuff we had planned. Oddly enough, my folks were furious and started berating Mike. In response, he threw a fit and started crying like a crocodile. To be honest, I was grimly satisfied as I saw it happen. My mother then made an attempt to brush things off, saying that everything had been worked out and that there was no need to fuss over a miscommunication. She went so far as to say that I should clear their identity. That irritated me. I cut her off and informed her that they were not at all forgiven. Their years of negligence were not undone by Mike's disdain for the invitation. In addition, they ought to have inquired about my wedding, which had been clear. Are you curious about my mother's reaction? She sincerely believed Lucas didn't like me and would never marry me, saying, "I did hear you talking about a wedding of yours, but I just thought you were being delusional and seeking my attention with exaggerated scenarios. Believe me when I say that I was on the verge of losing my patience." Additionally, it was discovered that my brother didn't even have a football game to go to. In order to dodge my event, my parents made up a tale about how my husband, friend, and I don't know much about football, we prefer soccer, and how I stopped asking about it when Mike made fun of me in high school. Since Lucas and I are blocked on social media and my brother has private accounts, I was unable to verify or deny the existence of a game at the time I made the original post. I foolishly believed what my parents said. But no. Do you want to know where the man-child actually went? Mike wanted to go to Disneyland, so they did. My brother's 100th tantrum vacation was covered by the football news. They had apparently done this several times in the previous months. The sheer volume of material I had discovered at that time left me exhausted and overwhelmed. I lost my temper when I realized how horribly I had been duped. I got up and told my father that he was a weak, depressed man who couldn't defend his child without his wife's consent. I informed my brother that he was a worthless justification for a guy who would never achieve anything in his life and would always live like the useless leech that he is. I told my mother that she was the worst narcissist and that she was a worthless little woman who was so irrelevant that she didn't even merit attention or condemnation. I went on to say that she was too rotten for even God to save. I understand, harsh. Halfway through my tirade, my mother jumped up from her chair to yell at me, but I was too angry. She became so enraged that it appeared as though steam was escaping from her ears when I yelled at her to shut up, sit down, and listen for once. After that, all I can recall is that I continued to babble nonstop. All of my hurt and rage seemed to pour forth. I believe the park as a whole fell silent at one point. I told Mike and my parents that I was disowning them all and that if they were wise, they would never contact me again. My brother and parents were left to the mercy of my aunts and uncles as I snatched up my purse and departed with Lucas, Anna, and Francis. I eventually had a panic attack on the drive home once the reality of what I had just heard and learned hit me. Anna helped me navigate it while Lucas was driving until we pulled into a parking area so I could relax. I am incredibly appreciative of their assistance. I threw myself onto the bed as soon as I got home and fell asleep. I really wanted to do what you said and share the entire discussion on Facebook, but I couldn't do it because of my job and profession. Sharing my tale anonymously on Reddit is one thing. Posting my identity and face all over Facebook is quite another. That was not a route I could take. I did something better instead. I gave the woman in charge of my mom's church a folder that contained all of my mother's derogatory messages and terrible remarks. My mom put a lot of effort into joining this close-knit society, but it's also really critical. It is a social death sentence to be rejected by them. Indeed, that is precisely what took place. Like clockwork, the scandal quickly swept through the little community, spreading beyond the church. You can only imagine my parents' reactions to this. I discovered further texts from my maternal side of the family, ridiculing me further for upsetting and disrespecting their sister or daughter as a result of my small deed. I took your counsel at that moment and informed my family that they would no longer be involved in my life going forward. They might talk all they wanted, but I wouldn't give a damn. Rather, they ought to be appreciative that I spared their spouses and employers from their offensive texts. I blocked all of them on everything, including the grandparents. I discovered a long note from my dad. He acknowledged that everything I had stated was accurate, expressed regret for not having the courage to confront my mother, and acknowledged that he was amazed at how much of my life he had lost as a result of her. He informed me that he was sick of being controlled and intended to file for divorce from her regardless of my choice. In addition, he said he wanted to get close to me in order to make up for the years we had missed. I responded to him by saying that I didn't want to see or forgive him just now. He replied that he loved me and would do all in his power to win me back. After responding that I didn't think that was credible, I blocked him as well. To be honest, his sleazy attempt to get out of the problem by blaming my mother was pitiful. At least she admitted to being cruel. However, he was limited to blaming others for his decisions. People like that are not what I want in my life. Along with the remainder of my maternal side, my mother and brother were barred. I blocked Mike as well since he continued to mock and disrespect me in his communications. My mother organized a self-pity party since she was rejected by her community and her marriage was failing. I said good riddance and then I blocked her as well. In order to help me, my grandfather chose to remain with us for a bit. He really is the greatest. Even though he won't acknowledge it, I can see that he is flattered by some of your remarks that he has read. A few days have gone by since, and nothing has happened. Lucas has been treating me like royalty, and I'm about to begin therapy. This is it. Even though I know it's not the revenge-fueled, drama-filled update you were hoping for, if anything changes or develops, I'll keep you informed. I sincerely appreciate all of your love and support. Now on to the next story. Story 8. My cousin falsely accused me of SA. My family cut me off. Now she's dying, admitted the truth, but they still want me to stay silent. Let's call her Jade. My cousin wrongfully accused me of sexual assault when I was 18. Sadly, my family thought her narrative was true. For years older than me, Jade and I were close growing up, but eventually we drifted away. She is the daughter of my uncle, my mom's younger brother, who was a single father. After his ex-wife became pregnant, my uncle married young. Unfortunately, she cheated on him, and their marriage broke up a few years later. She tried to keep in touch with Jade for a few years but finally moved away with her new partner, and they never got back in touch. A respectable man, my uncle always battled obstacles on his own and refused assistance. After his divorce, he never sought another major relationship. He devoted his life to parenting Jade. He even built a college fund for Jade, but after she turned 18, he told her that although he had done all in his ability to help her, She was now on her own financially as he had to consider his retirement. Although Jade disagreed, I thought that was reasonable. If she wanted to keep on her studies, she should pay for them herself. Many arguments between her and her father resulted from her believing he should support her studies for as long as she desired. Jade thus visited my family a lot of times. She would come over to rant to my mom following every disagreement with her father. Although I personally felt my uncle was reasonable, I kept my thoughts to myself as Jade would visit to speak with my mother and not me. As she usually did, Jade came up to our house one day without warning. I was the only one in the house. My parents were away. Expecting her to go, I told Jade that my mother decided to stay in the living room since she needed some time away from her father following another dispute. To be honest, I wasn't interested in hearing it again as she used to vent quite loudly to my mother, and I had heard enough about her battles with her father. Jade began venting to me since my mother was not here. Though I had rather different ideas on the topic, I could see she expected me to be as empathetic as my mother. I cut her off when she once more started grumbling about her father. Although my mother might have agreed with her points of view, I felt my uncle was acting rather sensibly. He had spent his whole life raising her to be a competent and capable independent lady. I told her now it was her chance to show him right. If she truly wanted to pursue a master's degree or perhaps a doctorate, she would have to do what everyone else does and pay for it herself. She majored in STEM, hence I knew that whatever job she finally landed would be sufficient to cover her expenses. She just had to at least try. She insisted though that she couldn't work and study at the same time and that she would find it too much to manage. I advised her maybe she should give up on further study if she already decided it was difficult for her to work while she was still in school. It was unjust to demand her father keep paying for everything, especially after he had already done so much for her, and she was treating him like the villain instead of being appreciative. I said she quite obviously hadn't anticipated that reality check. She started screaming at me and calling me a vile human being as soon as I said all of this. She said I was a pampered brat who didn't deserve the support I received. Hence, I would never be able to relate what she was experiencing. Though I stayed quiet, to be honest, I felt she was more of a pampered brat than I was. She screamed at me for a few minutes, then fled the house sobbing. I avoided her since, as I mentioned, I had no interest in hearing her grievances over and over again. The sequence of events surprised me as well. My whole life collapsed the next day when she accused me of SA. One accusation turned everything around. After 3 years of quiet from my family, folks are at last learning she had lied. My parents woke me early the day after Jade and I argued, stating that my uncle and Jade were here to visit me and it was reportedly rather vital. I had no idea what was going on, but when I got downstairs, Jade started shouting, accusing me of SA the night before and acting as though she was breaking down. My parents were equally startled, and my uncle seemed really worried. Jade was acting as though she were not even in a state fit for communication. Most of the speaking came from my uncle. He said that following her confrontation with him, Jade had been inconsolable when she had returned home the day before. She eventually informed him I had lured her in and carried out the conduct she was now accusing me of when my parents were not home. Not even my uncle could look at me, and my parents avoided eye contact as well. None listened when I tried to object and assert my innocence. It was appalling. People already treated me like a criminal even though I had done nothing. My parents begged my uncle for pardon right in front of me, asking him not to publicly disclose the allegation or report me. They claimed they will do all necessary to resolve the matter. Whether I cried out or not, my uncle and dad totally turned away from me. It was so annoying that I grabbed a vase and tossed it against the wall in an attempt to get their eye. That backfired. Regrettably, my dad lost his cool, grabbed my arm, and hauled me to my room, closing me within. There was no way I could let Jade get away with this. Hence, I kept hammering against the door until my hands and arms started hurting. Telling such a big lie may have destroyed my reputation. Sadly, my dad allowed me out of the room only when my uncle and Jade left. I started crying right away as he opened the door and tried to explain to them I hadn't done anything. But they informed me they had seen security footage from the cameras outside our house. Jade had come over the previous evening, they noted, and had left the house crying a few minutes later. They decided to trust her based on her tear-filled fleeing. They told me they were embarrassed of the kind of son Jade had produced, and that she had no reason to lie about what had transpired. While my mother was crying and unable to even talk, my dad assured me that, with great persuasion, they had persuaded my uncle and Jade not to file lawsuits. They were obliged to pledge something in return, though. To spare her from seeing me and revisiting the horrific event, Jade and my uncle insisted that I'd be taken far away. After much debate, my dad decided to send me to live with my great-uncle somewhere far from the family. With his bad attitude and anger problems, this great-uncle was the least liked family member. Though he said it was the only fix, my dad knew I hated him. Not only was I being sent away, but they also told Jade that, to keep things quiet, they were going to take my college fund and give it to her. I tried to complain, but there was no communication with them. Finally, I gave up as I no longer saw the need. Not even my own folks trusted me. Since her own father would never accept financial help from anyone, including his own family, I understood that Jade had most likely accused me unjustly only to control my parents and extract money out of them. After that episode, a few days later, I was ready to go and packed. Neither my parents bothered to say goodbye or give me a hug. They kept me under house arrest by posing as I wasn't even at home for the following few days. My phone was taken away, and I was not let said farewell to any of my friends. They cautioned me that they would destroy my life personally should I fail to get off the grid and vanish from everyone's lives. A falsehood Jade had uttered drove me to distance from everything I knew and cut relationships with everyone from my past. My great-uncle showed in a few days following that to pick me up, and I was sent off to live with him in what felt like an exile. Not one person from my past has contacted me since then, not even my friends or family. I had to totally start again in my life. It was quite challenging to fit in with my great-uncle when I initially moved in. Throughout the day, he taunted me nonstop, even though he had no idea why I had been sent out. He would harass me nonstop during the day. He would hold it against me and tease me about it based just on my being kicked out. I had to walk on eggshells around him as he had a bad attitude and rage problems, as I've noted. Though I knew my parents were paying him money every month, he still acted as though he was doing me a great favor by allowing me to stay with him. After the first few weeks, I understood there was no use to weep over lost milk. I knew I couldn't live with him indefinitely. My parents had cut me off and forbade me from interacting with anybody from my former life. I resolved to start looking for work as all I could do was maximize the circumstances. Not even could I go to college. I had been accepted into the college of my choice, but I lacked the resources to pay for attendance. Following several weeks of moping about and a few interviews, I at last landed a job as a warehouse worker. Although the work paid little and was physically demanding, at least with my first pay I could leave the house owned by my great-uncle. I had the good fortune to have a few colleagues around my age who were likewise having financial difficulties. The three of us decided to chip in and share an apartment and grew close friends. I knew my great-uncle would consider it a good riddance, so I didn't even bother telling him when I moved out of his house. Never heard from any of my family members once I moved out. I have been living with the same folks I found my first apartment with for the past 3 years. Every one of us has been quite fortunate. After a few months of working in the warehouse, all three of us resolved to keep searching for better prospects as the work was quite physically demanding. We all aspire to eventually go to college. Hence, throughout the past 3 years we have switched jobs and worked to save some money. I'm making a good salary currently working in sales. I have been considering applying once more to universities. My 2 buddies are doing great as well. We recently moved into a larger apartment in a far better area. Naturally, my family believes it's the ideal time to attempt and come back into my life now that things are beginning to show promise for me. I was pretty taken aback when my dad contacted me by email a few days ago since, as I indicated, I hadn't spoken with them in 3 years. Since it was one of the rules my parents made when they kicked me out and I'd been anxious about them disseminating the truth and tarnishing my name, I am not active on social media. I so stayed to the guidelines. Though they never tried to get in touch with me, my email address has not changed in 3 years, and I never banned them anywhere. Reading the email, it was essentially an apology for all that had transpired over the preceding 3 years. To enable his correct outreach to me, My dad required my address and contact details in case I wished to get in touch on my own time. He also included his personal contact details. Jade had at last chosen to disclose the truth about what actually transpired. Thus his apology and the abrupt attempt at reconciliation sprang from it. She was dying and I suppose had at last acquired a conscience or something. She informed her father the truth for whatever reason, and he talked with my parents. My parents chose to get back in touch with me once they knew the truth regarding Jade. Her pancreatic cancer diagnosis makes it quite improbable she will survive. She has been suffering for the past 8 months. Her health is just getting worse, even with continuous medication. Ironically, she couldn't even make decent use of the money from my education fund. She squandered all the money on bad life decisions. After screwing me off, she chose to take a gap year with all that money and tour the globe to expand her horizons and find herself instead of working toward her master's degree. Wanting to live luxuriously, she had already spent more than half of her savings when she returned roughly 1.5 years earlier. She came back with very little left and began pestering my parents for more. If she stole any more money from my parents, though, my uncle threatened to cut her off. She thus gave up on the concept of schooling since she lacked enough money left to afford a master's degree without working, and since working was something she refused to do. She still had some money left, but she kept her careless way of life instead of using it sensibly or trying to increase capital. She was already somewhat spoiled and lethargic from her year-long holiday. Despite not even seeking a job, she ultimately wasted more money purchasing an apartment and living above her means. She landed a job around a year ago, but she had to quit shortly after learning she had cancer. She now needs the money, hence she has to sell her flat and all else she purchased. Although I don't want to come across as callous, after learning what had happened to her, I couldn't help but feel some gratification. She was her own worst enemy, so she had no enemies. After I closed the email from my dad, I had to consider whether or not I wanted to contact my parents again. I decided to talk to my friends about it, which also meant I at last had to tell them the truth about why my parents had kicked me out. I had simply informed them that we argued up until then. I had not disclosed the actual cause. Email later, I at last opened it to my buddies. I told them everything about Jade, how she had lied and thrown me under the bus, and how my parents had thought her over me. They not only drove me to live with the worst relatives conceivable, but also had me cut everyone from my past off and threatened to destroy my reputation should I go against them. The truth I was imparting to my companions hardly seemed possible. They urged me not to contact my parents after I was done. They claimed they wouldn't pardon my parents either if they were in my place. Since these are my closest friends, and at this time they're essentially the only ones I have, I pay great attention to their advice. It's not only that they advised me to let go and avoid running across my parents again, they also advised me to talk about what happened to me. Though I did nothing illegal, I have been living in anxiety for the past 3 years. They are right. My parents chose to believe someone lied about me, hence I had to give up so much of my life. I have to talk if I want to take back my life. I told my parents I intended to reveal the actual account of events before I went public. People have a right to know the truth, so it makes no difference whether Jade is lying on deathbed. She destroyed my life. Today it is my chance to recover it. I thus texted the number my dad had supplied me and informed him exactly what I was going to do. The screenshots of the email my dad sent me already proved Jade had been lying. I could thus post the truth on social media immediately. Forget about just blogging. I may at last have social media once more. Though I suppose he misinterpreted the circumstances, I wasn't asking my dad for approval. Now he and my mother, together with my uncle, are blowing my phone and asking me not to do this. They contend that Jade has already gone through a lot, is suffering more than she has ever done, and has gotten her karma. They say I need not discipline her going forward. They are requesting me not to reveal the facts in public since it will damage Jade's reputation. Without saying why I left in the first place, they seem to believe I can come back into their life and resume what I left behind. In a sense, they are correct. No one will probably challenge it. Though I do not think I want to. Jade stole a great portion of my life, and even my friends find it quite reasonable for me to share the truth. It is about people knowing what actually happened, not about exacting revenge against her. Besides, There are few logical reasons for missing 3 years from everyone's life and then showing up again without a word. I'm happy enough here, so I don't even intend to return to the city. Yet I do miss some of my relatives and friends who treated me well. They should at least be entitled to know the truth. The only thing keeping me from posting is the constant calls and texts from my parents and uncle. They almost have been begging me not to go public. Jade seems to be in quite poor form. What then would happen if I went ahead and revealed to my cousin, even if she is on deathbed, the truth of why I had to leave everything behind for 3 years? Update 1. I finished it, lads. I considered it for a long time, repeatedly asked friends, and they all advised the same thing. Though I hadn't done anything, Jade and her family had taken away 3 years of my life that I could have spent properly, and I had to live in fear because of them. Whether or not Jade is in condition, it would be quite legitimate for me to exact retribution. Many of the responses on this reflected the same viewpoint. Ultimately, it was my choice at the finish. Knowing most people would support me helped me to feel much better. My first post was a week ago, and last night I finally posted a narrative of everything that has transpired in my life together with an explanation for my 3-year absence from the net. Friends, relatives, everyone who knew me have contracted out to let me know they are here for me and have sorely missed me. I trust them as I had several communications from folks over the first few months after I vanished. Apparently, my parents advised everyone not to search for me after that, saying I wanted to be left alone since I had gone through something horrific and needed time and space to recover. People thus stopped trying to get in after the first few months, believing they were honoring my choices. My friends informed me they had repeatedly asked my parents where I was, but my parents never told them, so they couldn't get in touch with me. Even many of my family claimed to have waited patiently for me to come back. Seeing how ready everyone was to welcome me back and how none had forgotten me made me somewhat cry. Most importantly, people have claimed that they always regarded Jade to be shady. Nonetheless, what she did was low even by her standards. My mom and uncle haven't said anything thus far. I hope they stay out of it as I truly don't want to talk to them. Regarding myself, having all of this off my mind makes me feel a lot more free. Speaking up about what happened was wise. I have no regrets about anything. Update 2. I posted it some few days ago, and yesterday my folks got in touch with me, having only asked one thing: that I let sleeping dogs lie. They informed me they were quite let down in me. They wanted me to come up with a reason for my 3-year absence but not tell everyone the truth about what happened since they think Jade deserves peace and quiet in her present state. After my post, apparently Jade has lost almost all of her friends, and even family members are no longer eager to talk to her. They seem to be blaming me. It's startling that they still provide more concern for what Jade is going through than for their own son's experiences. I told them I no longer bothered about their displeasure. An apology will never be sufficient. They let me down on several levels, and today they have no right to demand anything from me. I could say the same thing about myself. If they believe Jade should have peace and quiet only because she is cancer-ridden, I was just 18 when they booted me out and forced me to live with my nasty great-uncle. They showed no pity or forgiveness for me. I at least am speaking the truth. Jade lies, and she got away for 3 years. I'm going to take back my life now, and I'm not going to let anyone attempt and cause me shame about it. I advised them not to get in touch with me ever again, and that their only cause of disappointment should be themselves. Then I finally blocked them, something I should have done long ago, but I was confused and afraid. Speaking up about what has occurred to me, though, has helped me to find closure, and today I am not under pressure to deal with my parents. For all I care, they and their expectations can go for a hike. Update 3. Hey! After 3 hard years, this weekend I finally chose to see my friends and relatives. It turned out to be rather the finest choice I have ever taken. Along with me, more for moral support than anything else, were my housemates. To be honest, they have gotten so close that we are now like brothers, and I wanted them to see my buddies too. Everyone has been getting along fantastic. My buddies were happy to see me since they all were outraged when I mentioned I was planning to stay in a hotel. I am actually living with one of them right now, though I'm returning in a few days. My heart is simply so happy that I cannot even put it into words. We are spending our time of life living together in one of my friends' residences among my roommates and old buddies. I have also visited quite a few of my relatives who have informed me they have cut off my mom, uncle, and Jade. They never intend to be involved with them ever once more. At the end of the day, people will always stand for what is right, which makes me rather glad. Having individuals around who love me more than my parents ever did makes me happy, as they did not forget me. Now on to the next story. Story 9. The Robot Mop and the Freeloading Brother. Even though he never bought mop pads or utilized our robot mop, my freeloading brother stole it during one of his surreptitious trips. 7 years ago, my brother Chris, 27M, fictitious name, moved in with my boyfriend, 28M, and me, 26F, when he was sleeping in his car after being expelled from our childhood home due to drug addiction. We felt sorry for him. Chris and my boyfriend got along well at first. However, after a few years of cohabitation, Chris becomes withdrawn and aloof. I had to clean up after him while putting up with his pessimistic attitude. After he quit completing chores, I informed Chris that he needed to locate another somewhere to live 6 months before the expiration of our contract. I believed we had decided to divide up the joint appliances and belongings when he finally moved out a few weeks before the lease expired. We didn't talk about our common robot mop, though. My grandmother offered it to the 3 of us when we were at her house years ago because she was no longer using it. Chris never helped maintain the little robot, even after we took it home. The mop was a simple gadget that you filled with cleaning solution and used with disposable mop pads. Chris, however, never switched it on or purchased new mop pads. During the 4 years we owned it, my boyfriend or I were always in charge of it. We would all wake up to clean floors downstairs since I divided the cost of the mop pads and programmed the robot to run every night. Chris had been slowly transferring his belongings out for more than a month, so he hadn't returned his key. He would always arrive unexpectedly to collect boxes and personal items at times when we were out. We were unaware that he had been there. After giving it some thought and gathering many viewpoints, I sent Chris the following message. After giving it some thinking, I don't think the robot is yours. To help us get it home, I would love it if you could bring it to Thanksgiving. Over the years you've lived with us, we've been quite understanding. So stealing a shared appliance without asking is not only rude, but it also betrays a lack of regard for us. After years of utilizing and maintaining our robot without your assistance, we would like it returned because it belongs to us. Chris answered, "Go ahead and bring that over when you get a moment. I've considered it too, and I also want Grandma's TV." "Thank you," I answered. Additionally, the TV was given to us especially. "Why you believe that to be yours as well is beyond me," Chris retorted. Apparently, I was handed everything while I was in the kitchen. She asked if I wanted the robot, and I replied that I did. That was the course of events. The narrative is over. What you believe to be yours or not doesn't matter to me. It doesn't become yours just because I let you borrow something because I'm not using it, I retorted. We were all present when she made the proposition, as I recall. She insisted that it was a shared household item for all of us, even though I attempted to refuse because it was still functional. Before taking it while we were out, you ought to have spoken with us if you believed it to be yours. Chris answered, "You don't recall correctly. I don't need to talk about my own belongings." In addition, my boyfriend was acting shadily by removing items from the tent while I was away in the hopes that I wouldn't notice. LOL. What's different about that? Since I've grown up and don't give a damn anymore, I didn't bring it up. I want to move on from this awful chapter of my life, and if you don't, I'll do the same to you. That's when I informed him. We believed our conversation with BF about dividing up things we had in common went well. You're acting immaturely, and I don't want someone in my life who can't have a basic discussion about things we have in common. Well, I suppose that's it, he said. It appears that our little pal won't be returning. I provided an update a few days later. I wanted to express my gratitude to everyone who left a remark on my previous post. I read all of the comments and took into account all of the viewpoints. I felt empowered by your counsel to advocate for myself and demand the return of the robot. I mentioned my text exchange with Chris in my previous post's comments. In summary, I explained why the robot belonged to us and politely requested its return. Chris basically threatened to take me out of his life if I continued to bring it up since he couldn't see reason. My amazing boyfriend could no longer stand by and watch Chris treat us badly. For privacy considerations, I won't reveal the details of his private talk with Chris, but following your advice, BF threatened to tell the family precise details if the robot wasn't returned by Thanksgiving. Chris had a week to decide. As a result, I was getting ready to blow everyone away at family dinner. After a calm week, on Wednesday night, however, I discovered a box on my front step as I walked outside to warm up my car. When I picked it up, I discovered it wasn't sealed and I hadn't placed any orders. Our robot pal made it home. Guys, Chris must have determined that a mopping robot wasn't worth damaging his family's opinion of him. We want to maintain low or no contact moving ahead, and he will no longer be troubling us. Positively, BF and I have been checking on our pets with our new home monitoring cameras. It has made us very happy to watch our dogs and cats while we are alone at home. I'll leave a remark with a family photo of the robot and the pets. I appreciate your support, everyone. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.